to you. And I know some of you guys came out this morning and didn't have anybody with you and gave you a hug this morning, so I'm giving you one right now. Welcome, everybody. Good morning again. Good morning. All right, go ahead and have a seat. But some of you are going to stand again, because I am representing a global organization called Rotary International. We have, I'm the district governor. There's over about 500 people like me around the world right now running districts. In southwestern PA, I cover 9 counties. I'm representing Rotary District 7305. 9 counties. We have 80 clubs. We are boots on the ground when it comes down to making a difference in the world, in our own communities and also globally. I'm very curious because I saw a lot of my friends in the room. If you are a Rotarian, could you please stand up? Excellent. Very good. If you are an Interact, could you please stand up? Excellent. So Rotary and Interact are pretty much the same club. Is anybody here in Rotaract? All right, go ahead and have a seat. So Rotary has several clubs. It starts in elementary with Early Act. And from Early Act, it goes to middle school and high school called Interact. Today, our district governor for Interact is in high school, and he has a 2-hour delay. So he can't make it here today, but his name is Ian, and he's fantastic, and he understands how to help people. He has global views. It's not just helping his neighbor next door, it's helping the world. And that's what I really am excited about partnering with the World Affairs, especially with the fact that we had a 55-year partnership. They've extended their reach into all of our Interact clubs. So we have 70 in all of the high schools in the area. So if you are interested in going from, or connecting with your youth and making a difference, whether it's locally or globally, please connect with our Interact clubs or our Rotary clubs. One other thing from Interact, we are looking for people to go to college and start Rotary clubs. Our youth exchange students, I know we have at least one here right now. We do exchanges, and so does World Affairs. So we ask you, please, if you're not going through Rotary, connect with World Affairs, because that's how we are going to make a difference in the world, connecting each other and meeting each other and learning about our cultural differences on each other's soil. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for I'm so grateful for Felicia's energy as district governor this past year, and for all of you for being here today. I see lots of pictures being taken already, so please keep them coming. We encourage you as you move through the day, capture your favorite moments, share them on social media, tag us, hashtag WAI55 or World Pittsburgh. But more important than anything, connect with one another on this day. Take time to build relationships and keep those going. Speaking of partnerships and relationships, we are so grateful to have Mayor Corey O'Connor here with us today, the 62nd mayor of the city of Pittsburgh. Corey's going to recognize us with a special, on this special occasion, with a proclamation. Corey. Mayor.
Corey. I've known you too long. Corey's fine. I'm actually just amazed by the giant globe that's in this room. Besides that, on behalf of the city of Pittsburgh, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank the Rotary clubs for setting it up, the World Affairs Council, as well as Carnegie Mellon, and we are celebrating 55 years of the World Affairs Institution today. But the history of our city is the history that we want to be here to talk about, because Pittsburgh was founded on international communities coming together for economic benefits for all Pittsburghers and everybody throughout this region. We have evolved as a city, and we are now a talent hub, and we have leaders in so many different institutions that you are going to hear about today, from innovation to medicine to education to technologies, and especially to robotics and AI. Pittsburgh is a world leader in all of those developed departments. But the biggest thing that we have to talk about today is how we originally built this country, and now we are reshaping it. And it takes each and every one of you to help us reshape it when it comes to AI. Pittsburgh is in the top 5 in almost every matrix when it comes to technology. And that's something that we want to continue to build off of And with you and your interest in this World Affairs Council today, we can continue to build and grow. And we need you. A lot of mayors come up and say, we need you. Well, we need you. We need our numbers. We need the talent that's in our region to continue to help us grow in Pittsburgh. So thank you for being here. I know not everybody's in the city of Pittsburgh. Is anybody in the city of Pittsburgh besides Winchester? Oh, okay. I meant students. But okay, that's fine. I was going to give them a day off school, but if you would like a day off school, you can have that too. But for us, you are part, even if you don't live in the city of Pittsburgh, you are part of the region and you're part of the growth. So I'm honored to be here today, and now therefore be it resolved, I, the mayor of the city of Pittsburgh, do hereby congratulate the World Affairs Council on their 95th anniversary, and be it further resolved that I do signify this recognition by hereby declaring Wednesday, February 25th, 2026 to be World Affairs Institution Day in the city of Pittsburgh. So congratulations.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. If we can give it another hand to Mayor O'Connor, thank you so much. Now I'm excited to call up Elena Shao to announce this year's Omler Award winner. Elena is a sophomore at North Allegheny and our Youth Voice Fellow at the World Affairs Council. And she works alongside our team to amplify the voices of young people. And I just want to say, in this room today, we have about 300 attendees, 200 high school students, 100 professionals that come across different areas, whether it's educators, Rotarians, business, and community leaders. And again, we're so grateful to have all of you here today, and to get to call up Elena, who's going to recognize our Omler Award recipients. Bring it over.
Thank you, Betty. Good morning, everyone. As Betty mentioned, my name is Elena Shao, and I'm currently serving as the Youth Voice Fellow at the World Affairs Council of Pittsburgh. The Youth Fellows and Youth Board programs are both a part of the Council's work to amplify youth voice. The Council aims to foster curiosity in global issues, engage and connect students from all backgrounds, and to provide a space for young people to lead, collaborate, and drive meaningful change. In the spirit of amplifying youth voice, it is my pleasure to announce the recipients of the 2026 Omler Award. The Omler Award recognizes a teacher who does an exemplary job of uplifting youth voice and leadership. This teacher goes above and beyond to work with and amplify the voices of young people. They also inspire others in the school or community to do the same. This year's recipient was nominated among a competitive pool of candidates, and the nominations were reviewed by an objective committee of the Council's youth board members who selected this year's recipients. According to her students, this year's Omler Award winner is described as warm, caring, and full of grace. As an English language educator, she equips newcomer students with the language skills to succeed and assume meaningful leadership roles in their school community. Furthermore, as the advisor and adult ally to Global Minds Chartiers Valley, she facilitates cross-cultural exchange between immigrant origin and locally born students to build a more welcoming and inclusive school community. Without further ado, the 2026 Omler Award goes to Jill Chan from Chartiers Valley High School.
Good morning, everyone. I didn't expect this many people to be here. But when I received the email telling me that I won the award, I asked myself, what is it that I do that earned this honor? Because I just do what I do on a day-to-day basis, and that's how I see it. I just do what I do. And then I thought about it. You see, I do teach English as a second language, and many of my students are not ready to speak out anywhere but in my classroom. They sit quietly in their other classes, and then they come running into my room, Jen, guess what happened in science class? Will you email my teacher? Or in math class that I didn't understand, will you email my teacher? And most of the times I do that. That is until they find their own voices and they're ready to speak on their own behalf. That is what I do. I am their voice until they are their own voice. Thank you so much for this award. It truly is an honor. I say it all of the time. I have the best job and I love my students, and I will happily accept this award for just doing what I do. Thank you.
Please join me in congratulating our 2026 OMLR Award recipients once more, Jill Chan. We also want to thank all of the educators here with us today. We know that for sustainable change to happen, it will take all of us working together. The participation of young people in our audience is made possible by the partnership of teachers and other adult allies. So please join me in recognizing our educators with a round of applause. I will now turn it back to Betty Cruz to introduce this morning's keynote speaker. Betty.
Thank you, Elena. That was fantastic. Let's give it up for Elena. I can't help myself but saying that to Elena, the Latina way. So thank you for bearing with me. But so grateful again for Jill. Congratulations again. Getting to work with you has been a pleasure through Camp Global Minds, and getting to honor you is our privilege. Now, it's our pleasure to welcome to the stage this morning's keynote speaker and panel moderator, Dr. Justin Aglio. Justin is dubbed the godfather of AI education. He's an associate vice president at Penn State Outreach and the executive director of the Readiness Institute. He's a national leader in K-12 AI education and innovation, and he's recognized widely for advancing equitable, future-ready learning. Justin, we're so grateful to have your insights to ground us today.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much. And a round of applause for Betty and her team for convening everyone today. I want to thank all of you for showing up today. At the Franco Harris Penn State Center in Pittsburgh here, there's a quote on the wall. It says, "The right place, the right time, and no luck." Obviously, Franco was talking about the Immaculate Reception, but he talked about the importance of showing up. So thank you so much for showing up. I never get in front of an audience without thanking you, because you could be at work, you could be at school, you could be in bed, I wouldn't blame you. But you're here today, so thank you for getting through the snow, and thank you for showing up today. So just a quick show of hands. Artificial intelligence. How many people, in this room, be honest, we're all friends here, a little bit scary, raise your hand. See, a hand went up super quick back here, yes. Okay, hands. How many people a little bit exciting, or a lot exciting about AI? Okay, it's about 60-40 split. Last question, how many people are excited and scared at the same time about AI? Oh, I'm gonna solve the hand, very good, very good. So I like that. So the thing is, no matter how much we debate on scary, how exciting it is, or both, there's 10 new tools, as I speak right now, being developed on AI. What was developed yesterday, gain and probably double today. And it's going to increase tomorrow. And it's going to keep increasing. So as much as we debate about it, whether it's scary, exciting, or anything like that, change is here. And change is here no matter if we like it or not. And we have to adapt to these changes. I'm going to tell you a quick story about change. It's probably going to put you a little bit more at comfort. So Mr. Rogers, we all know Mr. Rogers, right? Fred Rogers. Did you know the very first episode ever of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Fred Rogers talked about change? Because King Friday was all against change. He talked about he didn't want to change the wall, he didn't want to change the tree. He went on and on how he's against change. But Charlie came back and he came to Mr. Rogers and he told Mr. Rogers about King Friday. And Mr. Rogers said, "Gee, I knew someone who changed their bed from this side of the room to that side of the room." And they woke up the next day, they said, "Gee, you know what, I've got some new ideas." And change is good. So here we are 50 years ago talking about how Mr. Rogers talked about change is good. And change leads to new ideas. And if you know me, I'm all about new ideas. And sometimes people say, Justin, you have too many new ideas. Well, let me tell you a quick story. We need new ideas. My mother died 6 years ago of cancer, went through chemotherapy. I asked the doctor, I said, how do you get her medicines? How do you regulate what her chemotherapy is? And they said, well, we use research, we use technology, algorithms. I said, you mean like AI? And he said, yeah, exactly, artificial intelligence. I dug into it more and more. And here we are, University of Washington, looking at 40 years of research, coming up with new treatments and early detections on cancer. And students in science fair competitions from all over the country coming up with new treatments at 14 years old on skin care and skin cancer and so forth. So we need new ideas, but we can only advance things like cancer through artificial intelligence. And that's the truth. Those are the facts because we have the technology and it's getting better and better and better every day. We also need more ideas on accessibility for people with disabilities. We need translating languages in real time, identifying climate patterns, improving clean water. Every day children die because they don't have access to clean water. So opening doors now that were once closed. And to kind of bring it down on the surface a little bit, how many in this room, be honest, have TikTok? I think there's more hands than that. I see hands like this even going up like this. So TikTok, I'm guessing you've never read the service agreements in TikTok. So let's talk digital safety with AI. TikTok, when you get permission, has access to all your photos, all your apps, collects your biometric features, your GPS, your voice, all your, everything it collects. Who owns TikTok? Anyone? Anyone? What country? China. And it's not a public company, it's a private company. So every time you're on TikTok, it's collecting all the information that's being sent off somewhere. Let's talk about jobs. AI influences every single sector. Everything, every industry, from healthcare to criminal justice system to education. And last but not least, let's talk about equity. We're here today talking about AI, but there's not a lot of people here, and they're not talking about AI. One school's talking about it, one school's not. One city like Pittsburgh's talking about it, we're leading it. Other cities are not. One country is, one country's not. How can we increase the equity so more people have access and more people understand AI? So I'm excited. I'm excited about AI. Here's why. Because I look at an audience right now. I'm going to be talking to panelists here soon that are fearless, that are optimistic to change the world. And I'm excited for that because we need to change the world. We have tools, like I said, to change the world for good. But we have to do it together. We have to learn from each other. We cannot be isolated. Betty talked about 10 years ago or so, we started the first artificial intelligence program in the country, K-12. When I talked to a group of teachers, I said, you're going to be the first AI teachers in the world. They looked at me and said, I don't know anything about AI. And I said, yeah, but you know what's good for kids. You know what's good for growth mindset. And they said, you know what? If I teach AI for 1 week, I'll become an expert. And I can share that expertise with somebody else. And together, we'll learn about AI. So that's what I encourage you today. Talk to each other. Say, hey, I don't know this. You know anything about it. It's not a competition. This is a collaboration with each other. So last but not least, I'm excited to introduce our next panel. So as I wrap up, I'm going to invite the panel, our opening keynote panel, to come to the stage. And I'm going to go ahead and set the tone for the panel as they come up. So we all know AI dominated global conversations this year, not as a novelty, but as an infrastructure, economics, and public good, and as a force that could reshape prosperity itself. AI has moved from being a future concept to something that is shaping daily life in classrooms, workplaces, healthcare, research, and public services. But global conversations don't shape outcomes on their own. Local choices do. So this morning, we're asking, what does the AI effect mean here for our community, and who gets to shape it, and how do we approach it thoughtfully and collectively? Today, you're given note cards. So I'm going to ask you, invite you to join the conversation. If you have a question for our panel, we're going to have 20 minutes of questions. Please write it on the note card you received at the registration table and pass it to one of the people and one of the volunteers around, and they'll collect it during the panel discussion. Or if you have a question now, go ahead and write it down. We'll go ahead and answer those questions with the panel as soon as we get started here, or after our conversation. Okay? Sounds good? All right, let's go ahead and get started then. All right, let's take it. All right, got a mic check there. Everybody's mics work? Yep. All right, perfect. All right. So, David. So we're going to go ahead and, good morning. We're going to go ahead and do some quick introductions. We're going to start with you and work our way down.
Sure.
And so if you can just say your name, title, organization, and we'll talk more later.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you for being here today. My name is David Hickton. I was the U.S. Attorney in the Obama administration here in Pittsburgh. And since then, I was the founding director of the University of Pittsburgh Institute for Cyber Law Policy and Security, also known as Pitt Cyber. I'm also a proud member of the board of the World Affairs Council of Pittsburgh and president of the Betty Cruz Admiration Society.
I'm with you there. Yeah, same, ditto.
Co-presidents. Love it. Thank you, David.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Delvina Morrow. I am the founder of YMU AI, which stands for Your Mission Unstoppable. I also worked for a little team called the Pittsburgh Penguins that many of you may know, where I led our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Yeah, we can clap for the Penguins.
Yes. Hockey's exciting.
And excited to be here today.
Hi everyone, my name is Kataki Desai. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a tech startup called Dashtrim, and we help kids reach their true potential through physical challenges. I'm also a CMU alum and a 3-time Pittsburgh Boomerang.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. I'm very excited to chat with the three of you today, and we're going to get this panel started. And I'm going to start actually over with you, David, for the first question. So globally, we're beginning to understand AI not just as a software, but as an infrastructure, connected to data centers, chips, and energy systems. Control over the infrastructure is becoming a source of economic and political leverage. David, what does that mean for a region like Pittsburgh, and what do we need to be paying attention to now?
We need to seize the opportunity. The reason I get invited to panels like this is when I became U.S. Attorney, I realized that because of CMU, Pitt, CERT, SciLab, and most importantly, the great people of the city of Pittsburgh, we had an opportunity to lead the way on cyber. And my mission then was to apply law to the internet, and we ultimately became the tip of the spear for cyber enforcement in the United States here at Pittsburgh. The same is true now with regard to this emerging challenge of AI. We have an AI strike force here in Pittsburgh. You've probably read that at Bakery Square, big announcements were made about financial commitments and otherwise. We have the resources, we have the talent, and we hopefully have the will that we can be the place, not only in the United States, but around the world, where cyber and AI come together and we connect the next frontier.
Thank you so much, David. Anyone else want to share about what's happening in Pittsburgh now that they're involved with that can contribute to?
So I've been in tech for the last 15 years. We work with kids a lot. That's basically what we do. We go to schools and we provide this programming for after-school enrichment. The thing that we're hearing and the thing that we're seeing is the inequity in terms of access. And I think that's something that we want to always make sure that we're mindful of, because if we don't have equitable access to AI across the youth, then we're not going to be able to fulfill all those incredible things that we're saying that we can. And that's something, you're probably going to hear this from me like 100 times today.
And I would just quickly add, infrastructure is also about knowledge, and we talk about the CMUs and the Pitts and Duquesnes, but there are hundreds of nonprofits here in Pittsburgh that simply don't have access. When you look at, what's the average salary that a CAIO is making, nonprofits can't afford that. So how do we really equip nonprofits to make sure that they don't get left behind in this AI race?
That's a good point. Those are great points on that. So we have a lot of high school students here today. So raise your hand, high school students.
Oh, wow.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love it. Thank you again for showing up. It's amazing.
Just like me, you're sitting in the back.
So we have a lot of high school students here today who have graduated in the world of AI, where AI is embedded, like we said, across industries and just everything. Speaking directly to the high school students who will navigate the future shaped by AI, what capacities would you tell them to focus on developing? Skills, mindsets, ethics, maybe something else? And I'll leave it open to anyone.
I would say really think about how you interact with people. We are more and more attached to our devices and technology than ever. Obviously, AI is working to automate so much, and the people who will really make an impact are the people who can actually still connect with one another and understand. You know, we talk about soft skills often, and I think that those skills are more important now than ever.
Yeah, I'll add to what Delina said. So we're seeing this with the kids, right? We're seeing that everyone, and it's not just kids, actually adults. I mean, how many of us on a weekend after work is done, we're like, oh my God, I have 30 minutes, I'm gonna doom scroll. You don't go there thinking you're
30
gonna
hours.
Yeah, and then you're at it. What that is doing is this like need for passive engagement is taking away the critical thinking skills. And we're seeing this right from little kids all the way up to adults. Those critical thinking skills enable us to engage better on screen because we question how LLMs work. We question what biases are included, right? When we have those critical thinking skills, we're better able and better prepared to deal with some of these issues that AI presents. So I feel like that is one important thing. The other thing is, I think going back to what Delvina said, right, what you're doing in front of screen, a lot of people want to engage in interaction with other people. You want to be able to do that away from a screen as well. We have such amazing values growing in Pittsburgh. I mean, like I said, 3 times boomerang. There's something very special about this city. And there's something special about the culture and the warmth of the people here. Building those relationships away from screens is going to be critical because that is going to make you a good leader. Everyone is going to get AI skills. We're going to get to a place where AI becomes it is almost a commodity, right? So what will make you stand out is your ability to have focus when you're presented with so much content. How do you get out of that and be able to focus on doing the things that you need to do and being a leader, and then building the relationships outside of screens?
I just want to say that as the father of 6 adult children, I've seen the digital age from instant messaging to generative AI. And my message to all of you students is you need to engage fully, but you need to also be mindful that you cannot be absorbed by the digital platform. There's plenty of information out there about how you can get lost if you spend too much time on the digital platform. And I think there's a reason why our principal economic adversary, China, is limiting people to 45 minutes of digital time per day.
So a lot of you talked about who needs to be in the conversation. We talked about the AI strike force. We talked about high school students, but in reality, who's missing from the conversation? Because you talked about equity and so forth. So who should be involved in the conversation with the AI that's maybe missing that we need to do a better job at engaging?
Let me just say that I really want to put a punctuation mark on the point about equity and availability. I'm one who believes that our digital assets have to be as available as almost electricity. I worked for the great Jim Clyburn during the coronavirus crisis. He's a longtime friend of mine, and he talked about a Baptist preacher in the South who years ago used to say at church, I have God in my heart, but I want electricity in my home. And that's true now with regard to the digital platform. When we were doing the work trying to chase the COVID pandemic, I was stunned to find out that almost half the country did not have broadband access. And many that were within the broadband access did not have the ability to purchase the devices. So parents during COVID were driving to Starbucks to harvest internet so their students could do their work, and they fell behind. And the opportunity gap in this country is a great threat to all of us, and if we do not pay apt attention to the subject of availability, equity, and making sure access is universal, we're going to suffer from it.
There you go. Good. Round of applause. Thank you. That's great. I agree.
Yeah, ditto everything you just said, David. I feel like the people that are not at the table are the educators. Educators are being told to use AI, find a way to integrate this into your education, but they're not at the table making decisions. And we see this every day, and this is basically why I'm worried, because we need educators. We need the people that are training and supporting, and Jill, I don't see Jill here, but the people that are the voice of the students, to be the voice of the students in the rooms where that's needed.
She's teaching, that's why she had to go to school to teach. Just real quick, how many educators in the room? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you feel like you're engaged in any part of AI with your school, community?
Sound mix.
Kind of a mix, okay. But it should be more thumbs up, right?
And I would say not just in the community, I feel like in the tech world, where decisions are being made about ethics of AI, about how AI gets used, about who gets to use AI, and what kinds of gates are we putting or not, which we're really not.
And I have two that I'll touch on. So obviously I mentioned the nonprofit sector. The nonprofit sector is historically left behind when it comes to technology advancements. I'm a part of the Fundraising AI Council, and it's one of the only initiatives that's really focused on readying the nonprofit sector for the AI boom, making sure there are policies and procedures in place to ensure that AI is supporting organizational missions and not replacing it in a very harmful way. Another very obvious group that's left out are Indigenous BIPOC people. My husband is white, and if I put an image of him into, say, ChatGPT and ask them to edit it, perfect, flawless. Me, it's like, what the? I won't say what I'm going to say, but I'm like, what just happened here? How did you get this so wrong? And so when you think about AI and the people that are building AI, they're not building it oftentimes with BIPOC people in mind in terms of using it. And so that's just a huge issue I think that we have right now, all around AI.
I agree. And just to note, if you want to note Gender Shades out of MIT, great study, great videos. Joy's amazing. She talks a lot about that. So we talked about who should be engaged and so forth. And we talked about AI is moving fast, right? Continues. And a lot of educators say, well, I'm trying to slow down, I'm trying to be responsible. I'm trying to do this with ethics. But as you said, companies are not. They're moving at the speed of light.
Yep.
So where's that balance of being responsible, but also moving fast enough to keep up with the current work demands and the current trends of AI, jobs and so forth? There's a balance there. Can you talk about that balance, a little bit of being responsible, but trying to keep up at the same time?
I mean, I think that innovation and safety have to coexist. And so as you're looking at implementing and introducing AI into your organization, you have to create parameters. You have to talk about what is AI allowed to touch and what must it absolutely not touch at all, and really help to create that framework. When we look at organizations, oftentimes people say, okay, well, we're gonna have a head of AI and they're going to be responsible for this, and that is completely the wrong approach unless you are an organization that's actually doing the coding. For everyday organizations, you need AI implementation to happen across the entire organization, starting with your leadership, to ensure that everyone truly does understand the rules of this road, right, that we're all on right now. And so that would be my take on that.
And I'm going to have you keep going here, because I know you're passionate about this. We talked about leadership in the workplace, but leadership in the household, right? Parents being leaders of it. Can you talk about that? Because I know that's something you're really engaged with.
Yeah, and so I have a 4-year-old, and obviously in my household we use technology a lot, and we don't we allow her to also experiment, and we started creating books using Gemini at night, and she was allowed to create a prompt. So she would say, I want to see an elephant and a cat dancing, and so it would come up with all of these stories using Google Gemini's notebook feature that they have, our storybook feature. And so we would teach her how to actually ask the right questions. And at one point she said, oh, well, I want to see a lion without its skin. She had no idea what she was asking for, but we had to pause and say, okay, this is not safe. These are not the type of questions we can ask a GPT or something of that nature. But for a 4-year-old who all of a sudden has all of this access to information, it's amazing. But there's also a lot of parameters as parents, as leaders, that we have to put in place and say, yes, use this tool, experiment, have fun with it. I mean, like, these tools are so much fun, but let's talk about safety. I've seen so many people do these ChatGPT caricatures, and people don't realize how unsafe that is in terms of all of the data and information, your image, and things that you are sharing. So, yeah.
That's a good point.
So that's really fantastic. I'm going to talk a little bit about that balance first,
Yes,
and then come back to because Delvina's story just sparked something. So I grew up I was born in India, and I didn't have a computer until I was in undergrad. Like, I was probably 18 years old. That was the first time I had a computer. We couldn't afford one. I'm not of the quote-unquote computer generation, and yet today I'm leading a tech startup. I have run programs that are like billion-dollar programs, teaching technology, or leading teams that are doing technology. And I feel like the biggest thing that we were taught growing up, and I'm sure a lot of us can agree with that, is this idea of critical thinking, right? Question what you see. And even what you were just sharing, Delvina, this idea of, you understanding as a parent that these are not things that we want to do because that means that it's unsafe, is because we have those critical thinking skills. I feel like and the reason why I shared my story is because I got to where I got to because of that curiosity, that ability to ask questions, the critical thinking to assess what is right and what is wrong for me, the ethics and the morality of it, right? As long as we have that, we're good. Because we want technology to be going past the speed of light. That's how we will potentially at some point cross the speed of light. I'm a huge science fiction nerd, so everything I want to happen. I want to be able to experience a wormhole. I want to be able to experience, all these like time travel things. It's like probably the only thing I want to do. But in order to be the kind of leaders that can lead that future and be decision makers in that future, we need to have those critical thinking skills, that ability to question. And one of the stories that I wanted to share, the anecdotes that I want to share, so we talked to a lot of parents who do our programming in their schools for kids, and we had a parent ask this question: I want my kid to be in an Ivy League when they grow up. I don't want them to be left behind. How do I stop them from using AI and learning about AI? And we were like, how old is your kid? And I think he said like 6. And I had a jaw drop moment. And I'm like, yes, 100%. But understand that there is critical development that happens in these ages where you don't want addiction to take over your need for learning. So that's where the balance needs to happen.
Thank you.
I think the operative words are use the tool. You have to use the tool liberally, or else you'll fall behind. But if you're talking about a 4-year-old using an iPad that they get at school, if they spend the entire day watching Peppa Pig, that's one set of facts. If they spend it in learning, they're going to be fine. If you use a law student writing a brief, use it the way I use it. I use it at the beginning, I use it at the end, but I never completely rely upon it because of the risk of hallucination. I'm a proud dog owner. Sometimes I think I'm walking a dog. Most of the time I think the dog was walking me. Use the tool. You have to make sure that this technology can work for us. And my liberal bent on it can be reflected by a story. It was November 22 that ChatGPT came out. And we were in a faculty meeting here at Pitt, and the question was, what were we going to do about use of AI on exams? And I raised my hand and said, any student who uses AI is going to get an A+ from me. And everyone looked in mock horror. To me, if you use the tool properly, this is no different than going from math tables to a slide rule to a calculator to a PDA to a Google search for rote activity. But that which makes us human is our judgment. And if we surrender our judgment to the machines, we are in big trouble.
And can I just add, and that's such a good point, and For the educators in the room, use your students. I can guarantee you that most of the students in here can come up and be a part of this panel because they are so involved with AI right now. Have, as a part of your classroom, have an opportunity to say, we want to hear how you're using AI in this class. Allow students to present and share, so that way you're a part of the conversation and it doesn't become a shameful thing that students are doing. At the end of the day, our kids in the room, youth all around the world are using AI, and we have to be a part of the conversation with them.
That's great. I remember New York City, to your point, David, when January of 2024, they banned ChatGPT in schools. The summertime, they reversed the ban. And by the end of the year, December, they said teachers use ChatGPT in the classroom. So in 12 months, they were reversing back and forth. So we talked a lot of things about responsibility, and I gave some examples how AI can be used for good. So let me ask you, where do you see the greatest opportunity for AI to strengthen the public life and education, health, civic services, and beyond? And what other public good applications should we be investing in locally?
Well, we did a study at Pitt Cyber I invite you to look at. It's at cyber.pitt.edu. And it was a study that was a community study on how algorithms and AI were being used by municipal governments. It was the first of its kind, and this tells the tale of two cities. It's okay to use AI to get us out of the Steeler game fast. It's okay to use AI when we have a snowstorm, when Corey O'Connor has to allocate where the plows go.
Yeah.
It is not okay to reinforce racism by using AI to use zip codes to decide where we're going to police, what calls we're going to make, and in the sequence we're going to make the calls when we have a child welfare call, or most offensively to me, predicting rates of recidivism by criminals by looking at their zip code. We have seen a widespread use in the interest of cost and efficiency by governments of AI, and it's a wonderful tool, but it has to be used with caution and with care. And I think you should look at that study. It's never been done anywhere else, and we did it here in Pittsburgh. There was a lot of community outreach, and one of the best things we did was make people aware of how it was being used.
And what's that website again?
Cyber.pitt.edu, or you can just put in your search engine, Pitt Cyber.
Great. Thank you.
I would say one of the greatest opportunities is definitely helping organizations already doing public good multiply their impact. When you think about the nonprofit sector specifically, these are individuals who are overworked and understaffed, and if we use AI to actually go in and help with some of the administrative burden, this allows an executive director, a program manager to actually do the work, actually go into the communities to meet with stakeholders, and that's the work that I'm really focused on in my company.
So I listen to a lot of Trevor Noah. How many of you listen to What Now? Trevor Noah. It's amazing. So there was this one episode about AlphaGo, which is the AI chess player, and there's Alpha something else, which is the protein folding using AI. To me, AI can do things that a human brain is not possible, cannot do, just not in terms of regular compute, but in terms of parallel, massive, multiple compute, right? And so on that episode about AlphaGo, this idea that the Grandmaster was playing against an AI chess machine and actually lost the first time and said, I am so happy because now I just learned all these moves that I didn't know existed. That to me is so powerful. It's like, wait, all these years we've been playing chess and there were certain moves that we had never computed because we just didn't understand it that well. That is where the power of AI is, right? Use this massive compute power to figure out how energy can be made more efficient across the world, how food can be made more accessible, how education can be made more affordable. All of these things come from AI. Like Duolingo is such a great example of how AI can be accessed by people everywhere across the world. And I feel so proud whenever I travel to every country and they tell me, oh, I'm learning this on Duolingo. And I'm like, that's a Pittsburgh company. and CMU company. But those are some of the things that I feel that AI is phenomenal. Like the idea of the traveling salesman problem, like when there's so many variables, AI can actually solve that, right? That is where we want to use AI. But going back to some of these examples, there are, when we don't teach our, populace, because I'm not pointing fingers at any demographic right now. I'm just saying when we don't teach our people that there are so many bad things, you might sit there and think, hey, maybe a chat room filled with AI agents is a great idea. Has anyone heard about MoldBot?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Look up MoldBot, MOLTBOT, the recent craze that happened, which was a chat room filled with just AI agents.
They kicked the humans out, to be clear.
Yeah, this is kind of what happens when we take a step away from critical thinking and say, maybe, let me just try this because I can.
And that makes me think about, this is going to sound very odd, Jurassic Park. My favorite line in Jurassic Park is, we were so preoccupied with if we could, we didn't stop to think if we should. When you're thinking about AI, when you're thinking about AI implementation, honestly, watch Jurassic Park. You will learn so much from it in terms of how do you even apply this to your day-to-day. Yeah, I could give my daughter a tablet and let her have a run for it, asking ChatGPT or whomever all of these questions, but just because I can doesn't mean I should. And that should apply to everything we do with AI.
And let me say right now, one thing you should engage on as public-spirited citizens is to debate about whether we're going to regulate AI. This current administration is of the view that we're in a Manhattan Project race against the rest of the world, and we are going to harness AI with no regulation for American superiority. I teach in it in Ireland, and in Europe they have an AI Act. They have a completely different point of view. Now I would point out that your dishwasher and your microwave are certified by Underwriters Laboratories so they don't destroy your house when you use them. But that's not considered regulation by some people. But what's going to happen, and Sam Altman, these AI leaders are all like rock stars now. You have Jensen and Dario. Sam Altman in Delhi, just this past week, again, for the umpteenth time over the last 3 years, has said, and I think we should pay deference because he's at the center of it, that he is very concerned about the dangers of AI. And he's outlined, look it up online, he's outlined the three to five concerns that really alarm him. And you're going to have more to say about all of that than anybody, because this is going to be a decision for all of you, whether or not we put some strictures and conditions and maybe guardrails around this emerging technology. In Europe, they have prohibited uses, allowed uses, and they have uses to be studied before they can hit the market, and they must be tested. I think that's a brilliant way to look at this.
So much to talk about, and within the next 5 years, we have teachers, educators, professionals, 300 people in this room right now. 5 years, 5 months, what's something they can do to be engaged with AI responsibly? Who should they engage with? Are there resources that you'd like? Are there groups that they should pay attention to locally here in Pittsburgh, but also resources that are accessible to them in Pittsburgh today?
That's a fantastic question. I mean, I think that question is answered by, it's the limit of your own imagination. I mean, we need to do so many things at the same time. We need to develop this technology, but we need to do it ethically and responsibly. We need to make sure we engage and learn the technology without proceeding down the path to brain rot, where we lose our capacity to think ourselves. We need to make sure that our community maintains and expands the wonderful platform we have to be a national leader on all things technology and all things policy. But most of all, and I think this point was made earlier, we need to recognize that every technology problem is really a human factors problem. Technology is a tsunami. We cannot stop it. In many ways, we cannot control it. What we do have control over is how we use technology. That's where we can actually have an impact.
The tools are moving so fast, so don't just trust one tool. If you're only using ChatGPT right now, please stop. Use Claude, use Gemini, use Perplexity. Really start to diversify, your portfolio of AI tools, so that way you're actually now a part of a thought process. The issue that I've seen with ChatGPT specifically, it's a yes tool, right? It gives you the answers, but it's very complimentary of what you're doing. So take that, and if you have a great idea, then throw it into Claude. Ask more questions. Have conversations in between these different tools. Don't just trust one tool.
So there's this concept of expert generalism. Expert generalism means that you can actually be a superficial expert across several different domains. That's the ability that AI can give you. So you might have interest in physics, you might have interest in economics, you might have interest in biology, but you don't have to go get a major in all of those things. You can learn on your own through ChatGPT. I feel like that is something that you can do. Imagine creating a group amongst your school, your teachers, you're at home with your parents, and saying, I want to learn this new skill, I want to learn this new topic. And then everything you learn, take back to your group and discuss in person. Debate in person, and then ask those questions to your preferred form of a LLM. That is something you can do today. Find a topic that you're curious about. How do you build wormholes? You can start from there. But do that. And I think the more you ask those questions, debate, build those relationships outside of those screens, and use the power of something so powerful, I think you will be on the right track. I know it feels super overwhelming. That's probably how the internet felt to some of us when we were growing up. I'm old. And also I grew up in India. But the other one thing I do want to say is use your voice. Don't be afraid to speak up. Because we're going to need your voice, especially, I'm talking to the youth at the back, we need your voice. You're the future, you're the reason why all of this is happening, and you're gonna have to lead it. So the sooner you learn that your voice matters and feel that confidence that your voice matters, the better.
That's beautiful, well said. So we have amazing questions here that our audience submitted, but closing thoughts. 30 seconds each, and I'll cut you off at 30 seconds, but 30 seconds, a sentence or two that you just want to make sure you get out there and tell everyone.
Empathy is at the center of everything that we should be doing. So as you're going out and using these tools, always go back to empathy. Go back to what it means to be kind, and are these tools helping you in that larger goal of what I think it means to be a human, which is kindness. So
Perfect.
Yeah, I would kind of say the same thing. We're all human. We have the same fears, and we have the same wants. And I would say that this is not the same. This is not just in this city, this country. This is across the world. I've lived in India, in the Middle East, in Canada, in the US. Everyone is the same. Remember that when you make decisions and when you make choices. The person that you don't understand is really just like you.
Thank you. David.
AI is magical. It has the ability to revolutionize the world and make the world better. But we need to be mindful of the challenges, and we need to address them.
Love that. Great closing thoughts. I have questions. We're going to try to get through all the questions. And so I pulled a couple to start with, and these are fascinating. So good luck with these questions. All right. So the first one, it's just 5 words. Will AI ever stop developing?
I refuse to answer difficult questions. No.
Yeah, no,
Agreed?
well, never,
No.
never.
I wanted to say that so they can hear, so
Yeah.
they can hear the answers. All right, so I will use this question as a follow-up to that, because do you think it's possible to become over-reliant on AI? And what do you think is the balance between using it as a tool and becoming reliant on AI? That's a great question.
I mean, if you're using AI to draft a text message, you're overusing it. I mean, it should be used. It should be used for research. It should be used when you have an idea, helping you to, flush that idea out and really create processes and procedures, not creating original thought. We are becoming robots, and the AI is becoming the creative. We need to flip the script. We need to be the creatives, and the AI needs to stay somewhat of a robot.
I like that. Flip the switch.
I want to tell a story because I always think a picture tells 1,000 words. My late father was the orphan child of an Irish immigrant mom. And so because I'm teaching in Ireland, if I could capture the records of his birth and adoption, I would immediately be an Irish citizen, which would make it easier for me to do my work. That is a perfect example of a project that AI is just magical. I mean, if I try to do that the old way, forget about it. But on AI, you can literally put some things in, and it gives you the phone number of the office in Yonkers, New York, where he lived, and the 5 Catholic churches where he might have been born. That's an example of where your capacity, your ability, is expanded by AI. The opposite end of the spectrum is where you surrender judgment and critical thinking.
Yeah.
You don't want to ever surrender judgment. That's what Sam Altman is talking about at the end of the day.
So I like that example. And so I did use AI one time to go through my family tree, and I'm getting all excited about it. I spent like a whole weekend on this thing. And I called my uncle, who's in his 80s, and I said, Uncle Sonny, look, he's like, that's not right. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, that's not your great-grandfather's name. I said, no, I found it online. He's like, I knew your great-grandfather. So I had to go back and research. It's like, oh, man. So I was pulling some other, names.
Well, let me say one thing. Let me say one thing that I think is very important on being the discerning user of all technology. Here's the paradox of the digital age. Since you were a child, you were born with skills that allowed you to assess information you were receiving. The first one was the smile of your mother when you wanted to be fed. But through your evolution from infant to child to adult, these skills were refined. Is this person biased? Is this person have a reason to say that? Are they being paid to tell me I should buy Woolite? And so forth. When you receive information that you used to read, was it coming from the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal? You had tools. The information you receive over the internet comes to you from sources that you can't apply these tools to. And then, and this is especially true for you young people in the room, I have had students tell me every semester I've taught, it's true because it's on the internet. Let me tell you something right now, and take this to the bank. There is more misinformation on the internet than there is information. This is a good time to prove that point. The free agent season in football. There is nothing but clickbait out there about what the Steelers are going to do. One day Aaron Rodgers is signing, the next day Aaron Rodgers is retiring. Those articles are designed to get you to hit them, not because they're accurate. And so when you compare the loss of our tools to discern whether information is accurate and the fact that we are getting this blizzard of information which is twice as inaccurate, that's the paradox.
Can I just add in very quickly, you can also configure any of these LLMs to fact check and provide sources. So that is something that, if you're not doing it yet, go into your settings and actually give it characteristics that force it to fact check and give you sources.
So we work with a lot of really young kids, and what we're seeing, going back to what David said, when you're spending that much time in front of the screen, right? A lot of these kids are playing video games. What happens when you're playing games is that you get rewarded every time you cross a level, every time you do something good. And we're seeing that kids are actually believing that's how real life works, is that you need to get rewarded for every single thing that you do, for being a kid, for being cute, for saying something cute. That's not how real life works. And
No.
I think...
Yeah, I'm going to embrace my status in this intergenerational panel as the oldest person on the panel. When I grew up, you hoped to be good. If you were good, you might be famous. Now, on the internet age, you grow up to be noticed, because it's the worst thing is to be ignored. And if you seek to be noticed, you can be noticed for being good or bad. This is playing out in many sectors in our society. Be good.
Thank you, David. So I guess what I was trying to say was, so when we're working with these little kids, right, we teach them that when you do challenging physical activity, we make them do things that they're typically uncomfortable doing, because parents don't want their kids to feel discomfort, naturally. You don't want your child to go through actual challenges, but we do that in a safe environment with a mentor, with a coach. The physical challenges manifest in a way where the kids feel like they can't do something, and then we force them to still do it, where they start believing that they are actually able within themselves to get past a difficulty, right? Because right now there aren't many places where you have to do that. And so we just had a class at Winchester Thurston a few weeks ago. And these were all 5th graders. And after probably about 15 or 20 minutes, half the class, I'm not kidding, probably even more, started faking injuries. Because they were running around for 15, 20 minutes doing these exercises. Now, I work with kids a lot. At that age, kids should be able to do 150 push-ups and do that. I know kids that can, right? Kids can do a 10-minute plank. Kids can do 20-minute wall sits. These are things that actually kids can do. But 20 minutes of just running around, they start faking injuries. And I think that's this idea of I am done, I want to give up. Mm-hmm. Catch yourself when you see yourself doing that, because you have infinite ability. And I think what happens when you're so dependent on the machines is you start thinking that the machine is more powerful than I am. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing you want to stay, that's what you want to tell yourself. You are still in control. You have a way of staying in control. And that's what you want to learn to do.
Thank you so much. And quick question to the audience, because I see some common themes here. These next couple of questions. High school students, raise your hands again. Keep your hands up if you want to get a job in the future. All right, yes. They all do. So, jobs. How's AI impacting jobs? Are they taking away jobs? What are the future jobs? Jobs, AI. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, I'm going to make a pitch for the Pitt Cyber Camp, which we do June this year in partnership with the U.S. Air Force. It's the largest camp in the country. You can see about it on our website, cyber.pitt.edu, and it's free, and it's in partnership with several local high schools. The reason we did it answers the question. At the time we started Pitt Cyber in 2017, there was a 2 million shortfall of the needed professionals, digital professionals, for the jobs. And that has now grown to 5 million. We need people to become digitally proficient. A couple of years ago at Pitt, there were recruiters going on campus asking students to withdraw from school. They would pay off their loans and give them an immediate job in the digital lane for $60,000 to $80,000 a year. These are good jobs. Now, as I mentioned the point earlier, we are going to have a workforce transformation as the result of AI. We haven't talked about that. There are a lot of jobs that are going to go by the wayside and a lot of jobs that are going to change. And that's going to be disruption. But whatever that disruption is, those of you in the room who become interested in becoming a digital expert or digital professional will not suffer for employment.
I agree. But I also think that, I see a lot of workforce reduction happening right now on LinkedIn. And I think it's great to go out there and focus on learning these technologies. But I also do think that it's very important to focus on the ologies once again, sociology, anthropology, really understanding how to work with people is going to be a differentiator when there are so many people going after the same jobs, people in companies where these tools are now writing their own code. So yes, you can go and learn code, and granted, we shouldn't just allow, AIs and LLMs to create all of their own code and things of that nature, but it's happening. Agents are happening, and so I would also say explore entrepreneurship. As teenagers, you can start a business today. You have the tools, you know how to use technology better than, I'm assuming, every single one of your parents. Go out, find the resources, start your own companies while you're young, and go have fun with it. And study the ologies, study humanities, and just think about the human cost of everything that you're doing.
So I started as a mechanical engineer. That was my undergrad. Then I went and got a PhD in biomedical sciences with a focus in cardiovascular physiology, so life sciences. Then I did some postdoc research in informatics. That's where I got my tech shops. Then I came to CMU, got a master's degree in public policy. And I did startups. I have done nonprofit. I've done for-profit. I have done investment. I've come back to startups. One skill, be adaptive. Mm-hmm. If you're adaptive, you will figure it out. That's literally the most important skill. Whatever tools you learn, you can learn digital stuff, you can learn to be a plumber, you can learn to be a craftsman. There are so many incredible things that you can still do, but if you're adaptable, you will adapt to whatever the future is going to throw at you. And that's it. Like, to me, that's the only skill. Don't be afraid of what the future holds. Be excited and train yourself to be adaptable so you don't feel like you can't control it.
Yeah, I mean, I studied anthropology. I've done fundraising. I've worked in the life sciences. I've done community work. I've worked in sports, and I'm an entrepreneur now. So, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying.
I love that. And students are going to school to learn. If you go to college, you're going to pay to learn. Jobs, you get a job and you get paid to learn. So become adaptive. So if you learn how to learn, you're ahead of the game. So this actually came from a teacher in the audience. So I want to talk about that. We know that AI is impacting teaching. Dave, you talked about that with ChatGPT. Yes, I will use it. So how does it affect teaching from your perspective in the classroom today, a year from now, 2 years from now, and what should teachers be doing to prepare?
Well, I mean, use it. I have really improved everything I've been doing over the last several years with the help of AI. Mm-hmm. It allows you to go backwards and forwards and sideways and up and down with regard to everything that you previously thought and challenged, and you can do it at such breakneck speed that it really doesn't create an inefficiency. So I encourage all the teachers in the room to really embrace it. I'm kind of a geek and a wonk, so you'll find me, the next frontier from cyber to AI is quantum computing. And so I sit at home sometimes and watch lectures from Princeton on quantum computing. Now, it takes me a while to get it through my thick head because I'm just a kid from Castle Shannon at heart. But you watch it over and over again, and then you put it into AI to help it explain to you. And I just think learning is so much easier now.
Yeah, I agree.
I think for teachers, you can also use it to break down barriers that you may be having with some of your students. Everyone learns differently, and AI will give you the tools.
Can you give an example?
In terms of
breaking down barriers?
So, say if there are certain students in your class who are just simply not understanding a project or an assignment, and you're giving blanketed information typically. I'm not speaking about all teachers right now, but you can really use it to customize your approach. If someone is having difficulties understanding a concept, use AI to put that in there and to help you create more customized approaches to how you deal with those students.
I have a completely different take on this. Most teachers are overwhelmed. They don't have nearly as much resources as they need, nor are they getting paid as much they should be getting paid. AI is your personal assistant. AI is very good at doing repetitive work, repetitive administrative work, things that you have to do outside of your class. Make the AI do it, because that's how you win. You get to spend more time with the students. You get to spend more time doing the things you love doing. Take all the administrators if there are any, but we all have administrative stuff, but take all the administrative.
Give an example, I'll put you on the spot as well.
Oh my God, creating rosters, creating reports, right? If you put in a few important bullet points, it can write for you. Then you go edit. Like anything that you do not find joy in, AI actually finds a lot of joy in creating. That's seriously the best way to use AI.
Great, thank you. So I have one last question here. I think I'd like to wrap on this question from the audience. We talked a little bit about it, but I want to go a little bit deeper in it. What are the key ethical concerns with our increasing use of AI? Like I said, I know we talked about it here and there, but I think it's good to finish on that question so we can keep that at our forefront of our minds.
We need connection as humans. In New York, they created this pop-up where you could go to a restaurant and have a date with an AI chat thing. And I understand that, we are living in a society where people feel more lonely now than ever. And so I just really push everyone in the room to use AI, again, use it with caution and also go out and connect with people. Go on a hike, go to a park, go do something. Find a community to be a part of and connect with people, because I think it's going to matter more now than ever as we look at the next 5 months, 5 years, and 50 years.
Delvina, thank you for saying that. I was at a conference in New York City, the AI Summit last year. Mm-hmm. We had 3 CTOs from the 3 leading banks in the world. And they said a year ago, we sat in our offices, we kept to ourselves. We can't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. Now we're all friends. We share what we're learning with each other, because that's the only way to advance, by doing it together. So thank you for bringing that up.
When I worked at the Penguins, one of the things that I created was a consortium across our hockey team, the Penguins, our baseball team, the Red Sox, and then our Liverpool our soccer team. And we're completely different sports, but we shared best practices, and that's what we should be doing today with AI.
So we have 1 minute left, so any closing thoughts on AI and ethics and what you want to close out on?
I just want to add a quick thing. Anytime you're trying to build something, and go try to build something. I was sitting on Lovable last night creating an app, and it was so amazing. Anytime you build something, just ask yourself this question. Is this going to help people, or is this going to hurt people? That's it. If you ask yourself that question before you build anything, I think we're on the right track.
David, any last thoughts?
I can't improve on that comment.
Perfect. Well, hey, give a round of applause for our panelists, everyone. Thank you so much. This is so fun. I love it. I encourage you, as they come off the stage and see them throughout the day, please connect with them. Ask them questions. They're here to help you and to guide you. So again, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun, and I had fun, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Justin. A big round of applause to Justin.
Yeah. All right, I told the next people, I said this is how I was going to introduce them. Everyone stand up, jump on the tables, make some noise, this and that. They're like, oh, we really? I'm like, I won't say that, but I will say that. So how about everyone stand up? I want to give a big round of applause for our next opening act coming up, our musical performance. It's my pleasure to turn the mic over to Christopher Locke and Shannon Locke for an AI-infused musical performance. Everybody, give it up.
Hello, we just need one moment to get set up, and then we're just going to jump right into it. Okay, hello. Thank you so much for coming today and welcoming us to campus. We're going to do a quick performance for you, but before we jump into that, I thought it would be a good idea to give a bit of a framing and introduction into some of the pieces of technology that we're going to be using to make these sounds. My name is Dr. Christopher Locke. I'm a producer, DJ, composer, electroacoustic violist, which means I have an electric viola with a pickup in it, sort of like an electric guitar, and I send that signal into guitar pedals and other effects to transform the sound. I'm also a creative coder, and I'm a professor of music synthesis at Western Carolina University, where I lead the studio for performance technology. Throughout these slides, I have a bunch of links to references of the things I'm going to talk about. So if you're interested in any of this stuff, please talk to me after our performance, and I'm happy to share these slides with you. This is my sister, Shannon Locke. She's a violist and violinist, an orchestral musician, regularly performing with ensembles in the Pittsburgh area and beyond. She's a former educational director for the Cincinnati String Project, which is a nonprofit in Cincinnati. And she's a founding member of the Ultra String Quartet here in Pittsburgh. So the first piece of technology that I want to introduce you to is a piece of software called Ableton Live, which maybe some of you have heard of before, if there's any music producers out in the room. So Ableton is a digital audio workstation, or DAW. It's a piece of software used for recording, editing, and producing audio files. But unlike its counterparts, things like GarageBand, BandLab, FL Studio, if any of you have heard of those before, Ableton Live is more oriented towards the live performance aspect of electronic music, allowing you to synthesize and improvise sounds in real time. And in addition to that piece of software, I have a piece of hardware here called a MIDI controller, which is mappable to the software, and I can use these knobs and faders to control what the software is making. So one of these knobs could be, for example, the pitch of a synthesizer, and another one could be the volume, and I can perform that electronic music in a more physical way, almost like I'm playing violin, for example. Okay, so going one layer deeper, the next two slides are the most technical, so bear with me, but in addition to Ableton, I'm using a programming language called Max MSP, which is a visual programming language and environment for interactive audio, video, and multimedia synthesis. It allows you to create custom audio-visual software and is frequently integrated with Ableton Live. So it's so commonly integrated that Ableton and Max have a collaborative product called Max for Live, which lets you open up your custom instruments and audio effects that you create with Max, the programming language, and open them in Ableton as a plugin. In Max MSP, I'm using a library called RAVE, which stands for Real-Time Audio Variational Autoencoder, which is a mouthful, so we'll just call it RAVE for now. But it's basically a deep learning-based framework for generating a neural network model from audio data. So a RAVE model will synthesize sounds in real time based on the timbres and sonic qualities of the audio data you use to train it. So if I train a RAVE model using a couple hours worth of dialogue or recordings of people talking, then the RAVE model will be able to synthesize sounds that have similar qualities to the human voice. If I train a model using a couple hours of audio from violin players, then a RAVE model will be able to synthesize sounds with similar timbral sonic qualities to a violin. It's important also to note that a RAVE model can be trained on a relatively small amount of training data. That is like several hours of audio recordings as opposed to hundreds of thousands of hours, which other bigger models use. So when developing my instrument, which I call Intona, which I'm going to play today, I trained the model using roughly 2 or 3 hours of recordings of only my own pieces. So as I said, I was a composer. I have a portfolio of a bunch of compositions that I've done in the past, and I used recordings of those compositions to train this model. So I know when I'm using it for a fact that when I create sounds using Intona, I won't be accidentally plagiarizing any other musical artist. I also have a link to my website and GitHub where you can download the instrument and play around with it for yourself. And one takeaway that I'd like you to consider after this performance and this talk is this concept of small data. So in contrast to big data, A small data set would be simple enough in format and small enough in volume to be easily understood, processed, and analyzed by a single human being. And I believe that embracing, supporting, and developing AI tools which are based on small data sets will encourage a more ethical approach to AI music creation, and one which doesn't plagiarize other musical artists. So tying this back to our performance, which we're about to do, our setup here, we have a violin, and we have a small clip-on microphone attached to the bridge that's taking the signal into my audio interface and into my computer, where it's then going into Ableton Live, the digital audio workstation. In Ableton, I'm using my custom-made Max MSP instrument to affect and transform the sound. I'm shaping that with the piece of hardware here, the MIDI controller, and then that transformed sound is coming back out to speakers for you to hear. So that's sort of the signal flow that we're going to be working with. And the style of music that we're about to play kind of originated in mid-1900s with this group of French composers who dubbed the term musique concrète. And it's sort of an approach of storytelling through sound. One of those original composers, Francis Dumont, referred to it as a kind of cinema for the ears. So I encourage you, as we're playing, if you'd like, feel free to close your eyes and let yourself imagine different images, different environments, different scenes that the sound and the music might propose to you. Okay. Thank you.
Can we get one more round of applause for Christopher and Dr. Aguilar for the moderated panel conversation that we had to start this morning. Thank you all. Please listen carefully for a few instructions because we are going to be transitioning into breakout chats. So first, I'm going to ask that everyone kindly remain in your seats. There are 2 air walls in the ceiling, and they are going to be lowered into place in order to form our breakout room. So in order for that to happen, we need everyone to be in their seats while we do that. That is going to divide this Rainbow's Ballroom into 3 sections. Rainbow's 1, which is closest to the stage, Rainbow's 2, which is in the middle, and Rainbow's 3, which is all the way in the back, furthest from the stage. You can also see the table signs on your table will designate what space you'll be in once those air walls come into place. If you are a high school student, please take a look at your name tag, and you can see where you are going next. If you're going to be in Rainbow's 2 or Rainbow's 3, my colleague Brian is going to put up the slide to show you again where you're going. Cool. So you'll see if the first word on your name tag, if you are a high school student and it says climate, you are going to go to Rainbow's 2. If that first one says careers, you are going to be in Rainbow's 3, but do not move yet. We're going to wait till those air walls come into place. For everyone else, all of our professionals, you'll be here in Rainbow's 1 at the front of the room. So again, please remain seated, and once those air walls are closed, you can take a break and move into your breakout chats. The next sessions are going to start promptly at 10:45 a.m. So we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
What's up, buddy? How you doing? What are you doing? This one. Your bike.
Please stay in your seats. Please stay in your seats. Please stay while the air wall's coming down. Please stay in your seats.
I would do pretty much the same thing. Lots of time points. It's kind of like a delay for a while, into like a delay that kind of goes out, and then I like make one hand to like change and like switch back and forth. It's not like, it's actually nice. Sometimes there were like bigger formal changes, you know, like there was like the 3 2-minute chunks that we talked about, the drones at the beginning, and then more of like the rhythmic thing, and then the kind of like thing at the end with the voices. Like those big sections are kind of like determined, but then all of your sound was like yeah, we could, I mean, I could see us doing something like that, but with a mic on each member of the string quartet, as opposed to just solo magnetos. Yeah, well often, like when I was writing more like instrumental, electroacoustic stuff, cool. But I would just have like a slow timeline on bottom. So it's not like measures, it's just like it's basically like all one minute. There's a timeline on the bottom, and you just start the timer. You start a clock. Because that lets it still be pretty improvised. Well, I do have ideas. Did you ever see that one project that I worked on? The MIT people? We had like a bunch of healthcare devices, like a breathing band, a player, a monitor, heart rate monitor, all these different things. I'm taking all the data and control. It's like a little player, like breathing, stringing it, like 7 different values. Yeah, so like a camera on the audience.
Yes, but we would have to talk to the folks outside.
Okay.
I would ask. Let me see if Brian, can you grab Jamie and see if we can get more chairs in here?
Pardon me?
Can you grab Jamie?
Jamie?
To see, this gentleman wants more chairs. How many more?
You let me know when we're good to go.
Okay.
I think this might have been the open water from earlier.
All right. Let me change this down.
We need one more set.
Yeah.
My panel has 2,
Okay.
4 people.
You got it.
Or I guess I could stay up here.
Right behind you.
Maybe we'll do that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
We are almost ready. I'll get you a chair and I have to make this one work.
And we now have enough seats because I'll stand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, a chair right here too.
Yeah, we have enough.
I should be here, but I have to run to.
Okay, so they just need to.
Oh, there you are. Yeah, can you hear the? Which one are you using? I'm using spare 4. Spare 4 here? No, I shouldn't. I shouldn't. Okay. All right. Can you hear the stage? No.
Just making sure we didn't bypass sensors.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's why I needed to talk to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's in the other 2 rooms. So up and
Okay.
then down.
Okay, up and down.
Yep. And then
Great.
I should be here. I'm just gonna run around with him until we get all this stuff.
Okay.
And thank you for your talk. Unless you want me to just leave these on.
Come on, I think it's fine. Sorry.
You got
I think yours got more difficult.
No. This we're trying to get it right. We're good. We're trying to get this right.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning. If you can hear me, clap once. You can hear me, clap twice. All right. I feel like I'm in school right now. We are going to get started in a moment. I think we have just about everyone. So good morning. Before we dive in, I want to take a quick pulse of the room. So hands up, how many of you have seen those AI-generated caricatures that I talked about earlier on your timelines? Facebook, LinkedIn. Okay. How many of you have done them? Come on, stop lying. One person, two people? That's it. Wow, I'm impressed. I'm actually gonna leave now because my talk is done. Just kidding. So, no judgment there, but now let's go deeper. How many of you are actually using ChatGPT? Okay. Claude? Gemini? Perplexity? Something else I haven't mentioned? Ooh, let's hear it. Gamma?
U.com.
Okay.
PlayLab.
PlayLab. Okay, and how many of you are using multiple tools across projects? Great, I'd love to see that. And last question, and this one really matters. So how many of you have gone into your settings and really looked at the back end and turned off options that allow your conversations to train the model? 1, 2, 3. All right, so this is important. This is really important, and this is why we're here today. And so it's great that you are all using these tools, but there's a real gap between using the tools and actually leading with AI, between letting the technology make directions for you and decisions for you and making intentional decisions about technology. The gap is what this panel is going to talk about today. Today we have 4 leaders who are grappling with the question that we are here to talk about today. And I'm going to invite them up at this point. All 4 at the same time. It's okay. So our 4 leaders are grappling with the question from very different vantage points. We have youth development, nonprofit capacity, workforce systems, and impact measurement. Together they represent what it looks like to put people at the center of these decisions, not as afterthoughts, but as starting points. So give them a round of applause, please. And I am going to allow them to introduce themselves, starting with Brendan, and we'll go down.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brendan Sapaz. What do I say?
Just your name, your title, and why you're here today.
I'm the founder of C-Change Consultants based in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm here to talk about impact analysis and how you can use AI in nonprofit space. I'm also a Rotarian. I'm the service director of my club all the way in Nairobi, so I can talk a little bit about that too.
Thank you, Brendan.
Hi everyone, I'm Kataki Desai, the CEO and co-founder of Dashram. We work with kids, we go into schools and help after school enrichment. So we have a program that that teaches kids confidence, resilience, and growth mindset through physical challenges. We believe that every child can rise to their true potential, and we're based right here in Pittsburgh.
Morning, my name is Ben Webb. I'm the executive director of QS Quackerley Simmons, which is a major ed tech company based out of London. For those in the higher education university space, we run the QS World University Rankings, the largest global ranking in the world for universities. We sit in 4 pillars of direct student recruitment to get students to universities globally, understand their institutional performance, reputation management, global footprint, research, so on and so forth, and then skills and employability, and then innovation. So big data, I saw you're a big data person, so we obviously run massive data sets across all of the 1,756 universities that we run, but also trends, so global student flows. In a world where visas are hard and government conversations are harder, what's our opportunity for our student flows, and how does it look from now till 2030, and the opportunity that universities like Carnegie Mellon have to be able to make an impact on those students in the countries while we navigate these times.
Good morning, I'm Fred Brown, President and CEO of the Forbes Funds. There's approximately 8,500 nonprofits in Southwestern PA. We touch 2,500 of them intimately every year, and 40,000 of them in a general sense through exchanges. For example, those that call for community solutions, which we facilitated over 5,000 calls since COVID with 60,000 people in it. We're a capacity building organization, so we focus on creating regenerative ecosystems so that people don't come back and see us twice for the same thing. But more importantly, we have this notion that no single organization can solve today's problems, and therefore strategic collaborations are critical to solve them at a systemic level.
I love that ending point about no single organization can solve today's problems, and that's something we're really going to look at today as we talk about AI and going from being a consumer to an architect. And Kataki, I want to start with you. So you're building resilience, power words, and self-determination in children before they even open a laptop, we hope, in a world where AI is increasingly shaping how kids learn and see themselves. What's the human architecture that has to exist first before any technology enters the room? Oh, I'm so sorry if you didn't hear me. You just yelled at me. I'll move over here.
So the human architecture, which actually, and how many of you were here for the plenary thing? So I don't want to keep repeating myself, which I probably will, but we grow a lot when we're really young, right? There are all these critical developmental changes that are happening in our brains and our motor skills and how we think, how we communicate, how we build relationships, how we solve conflict. What's changing in today's world is the way things worked when I was a kid, which was 45 years ago, I just told you how old I am, was different. We played outdoors, we built those skills on our own, we got into fights, we had to figure out how to solve those problems ourselves, rebuild those relationships, do something wrong, fail, cry, hurt ourselves, you get the point. A lot of those critical developmental skills are going away because one, kids aren't playing outdoors as much. I mean, the statistics actually say that prisoners in the US spend more times outdoors than little kids. Look it up. So we're not just taking away play, which is really important. We're taking the ability to have critical development happening when it needs to happen. And then we're, effing it up even more, right? And this is not a blame. This is not, the point is it's what we're presented with, right? When you have two parents that are working to make ends meet and come home and need to make food, and you're like, 4-year-old Tommy, here, have a screen so we can get work done, right? It's not a blame, it is just the reality of the world that we live in. What's happening is the double whammy is that now we're putting kids in front of devices that are teaching them that they need to be rewarded for every little thing that they do. They are not able to form the critical pathways that are so important at those stages. So, what's the human architecture that needs to happen? Everything that we're not doing is something that we need to be really mindful. How are we providing those opportunities of all the critical things that kids were learning outside of being in a class, outside of enrichment, and I think we as a society need to just look at, how are we doing that? Are we're moving so fast, and we talked about this in the morning, that technology is wonderful. We want to use technology and we want to be able to get value from it, but we want to make sure that our values as humans are being embedded in how we use technology. Sorry, that was?
No, that was great. Kataki just named what has to exist in the person. Fred, I want to ask you what has to exist in the organization. You've launched AI cohorts, I believe. You've deployed Gilly, is that the name? Yep, we have to tell everyone about that. And you're in the room where nonprofits are deciding whether to lead with AI or be led by it. What's the moment you've witnessed where an organization crossed the line from consumer to architect, and what made that shift possible?
Can I first start off by saying the dichotomy that exists within the nonprofit
100%, please do.
I think I've been in the nonprofit sector for 35 years and in philanthropy for 8. What I noticed when I took over the Forbes Funds in 2018 was that the chasm between high-performing nonprofits and emerging one was exponential. When you add technology to that, it grows in a much more, it's not an accelerated rate, it's a exponential rate. And then the third and fourth component is Most nonprofits don't see themselves as businesses. And the fourth one is, even if you use the tool AI, Claude, Literally, ChatGPT, if you don't have a business model, it doesn't optimize the use of the technology. All it does is increase your current capacity to do what you're doing. So we've been able to save nonprofits right now 12 hours a week per person using a tool that we created called Billy. And we're partnering with Mad Labs and Skill Builder IO. We're getting ready to launch the 0-second referral system right now with 700 nonprofits in there, so we avoid data researches or searches for partnerships. But ultimately, the nonprofit ecosystem have to change their mindset, which I find to be, if I had to be honest, I would say 90% of them don't see themselves as businesses, and 10% do, and you can see that in with how they perform. And my concern as a human being is those who don't adhere to this in an early and often way, they represent the moral fabric of the community that we don't pay attention to. And when they fail, we have no idea what that failure rate's going to look like on a human toll.
You talked about mind shift and mindset shift. So does anyone else want to touch on the importance of that in this work? Fred, I'm still going to ask you a question.
I think like a mindset shift, especially around like nonprofit to for-profit and stuff, is about how you're embracing this, right? Knowledge is power, and time is against us at all times. So you talk about integration of AI and how are you using it to scale to like 12 hours a day is great. Like, think about how much time we use even just consuming our news, right? We wake up early so we can have our coffee, so we can sit there before the kids get up, we consume it. Right, like, so I wrote an AI, well, my team and myself wrote an AI agent. So like, I wake up in the morning and I say, good morning, give me the rundown. So my remit at QS is I run Canada, US, and all of Latin America. So I talk to my AI in the morning, say, hey, give me the rundown for North America, and it runs me everything that's happened in the news related to higher education. Then I have a section into public Ivies, Big 10, Pac-12, so on and so forth. So I consume this, then it Cliff Notes it out for me. So every day when I get into my team as a team of 13, I can go to each sector and I'm like, okay, did you run your agent this morning? Like, did you have a coffee agent? And we can have this. So I'm saving time using that. And then like in a nonprofit world, time is money as well. So like, how many of you use Scribe? So like onboarding is like my worst like nightmare. I hate it. Like I run multiple countries. So I keep finding myself having to do this onboarding over and over again. And we didn't pay for Scribe, but like we built an agent through our AI that will onboard for me. So it's like, okay, well, this is all the tools that we use. So record myself, now make it into a file, right? So again, like now I'm saving human time to a proficient level of myself. So we did it once, we did it right, we recorded it, we saved it. So I think it's about kind of like how we're using this in this space where if we have limited resources, it's how we're using it to catch up on the things, make it faster access that we need to go, and then tactically, how are we addressing it for real problems, like things that nobody thinks about? Like, I don't want to onboard people. It's like HR, like we should do this, but we can make it easier, and there's tools and resources to be able to do that on a global scale. So I don't know where I was going with this, but yeah.
I think the important thing that you guys should ask us up here is, as we share with you the savings that AI and other tools are providing for us and our constituents, the greater question is, what are people doing with that new time?
Yeah.
And so we partnered with Nora Bates out of Sweden. She's a third-generation geneticist, and she started something called Warm Data Labs. And so I've been working with Nora for 4 years. And when COVID hit, we had to move to a digital platform called People Need People. And so we trained and had 42 2-hour sessions with leaders to discern what they needed. And if you know anything about the nonprofit sector, it's a people-to-people environment. So when COVID hit, people had to use technology in ways they never had to use it before. And so we purchased Zoom licenses for nonprofits and taught them how to have these exchanges using Nora's work. Basically saying that if we create relationships to deeper relationships, our ability to transform is aligned with the work that Einstein said. You can't solve a problem with the same energy to create the problem. So how do we foster how do we foster people resonating at a different frequency? And so when we talk about AI is a tool that optimizes where human beings are at, but human beings to resolve problems have to understand scalability, which is why I started off by saying no single organization can solve today's problems. I have no doubt in this room that all of us on the stage and you in the room do great programming. But when I look at the problem at a global level, on a national level, and a local level, in Pittsburgh we have $40 million of real assets every year in our ecosystem, and in 40 years we haven't solved one thing. We haven't solved housing, medical issues, unemployment. We haven't solved anything. I'm talking real dollars. And so when we start talking about how we apply our new tools and assets, it's the human beings that really are the transformative construct there.
So I mentioned earlier that I'm a 3 times boomerang to Pittsburgh. I'm originally from India, but I came to Pittsburgh and then went to New York, decided I want to come back, went to India, and then decided I want to come back. And then just recently went to Canada for 4 years. Got a Canadian citizenship. At the time I was still on visas, so in case the administration decided to make any more H1 changes, I didn't have to get deported to India. But I lived in Canada, and I've lived in all these different places, and the one thing that I felt that was very different here, right? I am a huge believer of Pittsburgh. I'm a huge believer of how we do things differently in America. I literally got my green card 3 days ago, so now I can proudly say that I am American, even though I'm not a citizen. But I felt that way. We take matters in our own hands. Most countries do not do that. I say that, having lived in India, having lived in Canada, the culture typically is the government will fix it. Someone else will fix it. It's not my job to fix it. And here, we don't believe that. And I think with AI, we have tools and resources to come together. It doesn't have to be at the government level. It doesn't have to be at the state level, but we can come together in our communities, be it our neighborhoods, be it our schools or organizations, and we can find efficient ways of doing things together. We still have that. And I think that we should use it without, let's not even get to, how bad things are, but this is something we have. And I think that's what, going back to what Fred just said, there are so many issues that we can fix if we wake up and say, I can do something about it. And that's all that we need to believe, that I can do something about it. That's a mind shift change. It's not even a change, it's really who we are as Americans, that we have to believe that we can still do, despite all the chaos.
Thank you. Ben, your data tells us that 85 million jobs could go unfilled by 2023, and 2.5 million US jobs are highly vulnerable to AI disruption. But systems, specifically universities, employers, governments, are notoriously slow to redesign themselves. So who in the higher education and workforce space is actually architecting for this future, and what does that look like? Or what do you want it to look like?
Yeah, well, at a university you asked me this. How many people are in here university professionals? Faculty, staff? Okay.
That one?
Right. I think I can outrun 3 of you. I think this is a huge conversation. The past 45 days, I was in London for an Ed Summit. I just came back from Goa, where I was with Joint Secretary Pami, and I was with the founder of the India Foundation. We run a big conference there, and we had this whole conversation about what does education look like and who's responsible? And the big conversation is the skills gap. Right, statistically by SHRM, right, we're graduating the dumbest students in the history of the world. Right, these students are statistically failing the standardized test system for the first time ever at a rate larger than the year before them, and statistically they're getting more schooling time ever. So we're having these students come out and they're getting this iPad and they're learning how to do it. What they're getting really good at is how do the tools answer for them, but they're not learning the actual skills of the world. You put them in a room with someone, they look at each other and they're like, are we all reading minds? But then they'll text. Right, so we're having to reskill in a different way, and it's really hard, right? When you look at what we do, so our skills and employability arm, right? We mine 500 million jobs a year, and we can statistically say that if you have a student who is coming through Tepper in economics and they want to go be a consultant at EY, we can look at the syllabi, we can look at their resume, their experiences, and we can statistically say you have a 72% opportunity based off of the 1.7 million jobs we mined to place yourself into this role, right? We can statistically do that. Now, I also worked here through COVID in Tepper, so it's one of those things now is as you start to evaluate faculty and teachings, if you're tenured faculty, getting them to change or launch a new program is difficult, but that's where this lies, is how have we adopted on the delivery and the conversation that we have. There's a gentleman from DePaul University named John that comes out of the B school. He runs an AI class, and his class changes every morning, depending on what happens in the market. So he's literally scrambling to write with AI what he's going to go into the classroom and talk about, because what he was going to plan could be different. So it's about where the faculty are and a realization of where the world is going. Like some of these things, like accounting, accounting is accounting, but you get into somebody who wants to be a consultant in the way that they're going to use AI or the way that they're going to present and critically think as they go into a problem to be able to solve skills. I mean, that's a classroom atmosphere that like quantitatively, like you can't create. Like you have to be able to get into that room and say this. So it lies with the educators to be able to figure out, like AI is here. And I remember the first time that AI hit me was 3 years ago. My daughter's 2, so yeah, 3 years ago, I was at GMAC, which is a Graduate Management Admission Council for B schools. And I was running a panel with the University of Toronto at UNC Chapel Hill, and we were talking about like AI is coming and da-da-da. And the director at the time at Toronto was like, how have you guys figured out if AI is filling out their MBA applications? And I was like, what? What do you mean? And he's like, yeah, like have you started to see themes from like, and I was like, that wasn't even on the list. Now it's like an everyday, we're like, so it's came fast, it's came furious, but the adaptability to address the skills gap, the responsibility, I mean, it's university administrators, right? Carnegie Mellon is a world leader in AI, computer science, engineering. They're known for these things. They're probably one of the world leaders in also adaptability to change, to be able to produce quality students into the world. There's 4,000 institutions in the United States. How many of them are doing that as well, right? So Justin was up here from Penn State. They just launched the AI engineering program. So we're starting to see a lot of that in my morning rundown in the Big Ten, right? One does it, now they all do. So it's a lot about how are the educators upskilling and teaching themselves about market needs, not what they think the market needs because they talked to somebody who was a Deloitte or McKinsey consultant 20 years ago, right? The market is very different. It's the actual needs. So if you work in career service, you might think, well, there's soft skills, there's hard skills, and this is the way you're going to use in the world. But the job description is actually asking for a lot of different things. So for the business world, we mine 287,000 business syllabi. And then we ran it through and we're like, how many of these actually align with what a master of business analytics actually needs to be able to go be an analyst? And there's a monstrous gap. And when you look at the people the syllabus are coming from and so on and so forth, there's trends that you can find. So this truly, as you say, it is partially a human problem because AI is a tool at the end of the day, right? It is a tool that we use, and how you use it produces your outcome. Mm-hmm. But if we're not giving the human the information, which we can gather from AI to make that case to evolve, you're in this perpetual circle that is just chaos. And I mean, we do a lot of big data, but like SHRM, obviously like the HR organization, I mean, I sat at a conference in their station, it was like 26% of graduates last year brought a parent to their interview. I mean, that is a complete lack of autonomy and ability to, I mean, don't quote me on the 26, it was starting for 2. And it's public on their website, you can look at the presentation. But like, I mean, what?
Yeah.
Like, I left home at 17 and never went back.
Dependability worse, do you think, for this next generation?
I think AI is, in the early stages, is making dependability, it's making people more dependent on it. Because like, why would I go to Google and look for the article that will give me the answer where I can just ask Copilot or ChatGPT and it finds it for me? Mm-hmm. Right? When we talk about SEO versus AEO and how are we finding things, I mean, without a doubt, but it also has a great role because we talk about time.
Yeah.
And for those that are in the nonprofit area, like, you don't have time to figure this out. Like, I see somebody tell me exactly where it is. Total addressable markets.
Yep.
We're paying consultants to do these things. Or you can have AI do it. If they're getting public funds, state funds, right? Like, you can run this through a system, give it a really good prompt. And we spoke about letting our AI learn. Like, I love letting my AI learn because then it learns me. It also speaks like me. Mm-hmm. So there's some things that it's definitely enabled us to work faster. But I think, like, forums like this, right? Like, being here in person, you're going to have to talk to some people at your tables. Some of you probably walked in, you're like, oh, great. But it's like, this part keeps your soft skills mm-hmm. and the networking alive.
But you also have to talk about the moral compass.
Yeah.
Well,
no, please.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I think the thing that we also have to confront as an external locus of control is, where is the U.S.'s moral compass at today? All right? And so this work that AI is undertaking at the same time that our culture and our country is unraveling things that we've had historically, and new things that are coming, we have a confluence of things occurring, and at the middle of that, there's no conversation about our moral compass. AI has to have a moral platform, because if it doesn't, it can be used in nefarious ways. That's already being seen. And so it's here, it's not going anywhere. If we don't safeguard it in a way that it's a tool that we manage appropriately, there's no telling where we're going to end up. And so we can't even get there, because the first time we created Gilly to the next time we ran a cohort, technology grew exponentially. Like within a whole 3 weeks. We went on break and came back and it was different. We've never seen anything like that. We've never seen anything like that. And we have no idea how we can indicate what's coming. There's no level of predictability about where this is going, because as we get better, it gets better.
Yep.
I mean, exponential growth, right? And so the question underneath all of that is, you know, how do we actually know if it's working? And Brendan, I'm going to turn this question over to you. So you spent your career asking the hardest questions in social impact. How do you actually know if it's working? So ask the same question about AI adoption in mission-driven organizations right now. Are we measuring the right things? And what does accountability architecture for people-centered AI even look like?
Well, I mean, the short answer is no. I mean, I think like Fred said, AI is a tool, and it tends to recreate the gaps that we have as the humans using it, right? Before I was doing the work that I'm doing now, I was a teacher a long time ago. I won't tell you how long, but a little while ago. I was a teacher, I taught special education, I was a principal, I did a bunch of stuff. And one of the things that we got really good at as teachers and as principals is like backwards planning data measures, right? It's like, this is the outcome we want, here's how we can measure. When I came into the nonprofit world, all people want to talk about are inputs. Nobody talks about outputs. It's like, here's what we did. Which, like, that's great, but if you gave a panel and there was nobody in the audience, guess what? Nothing happened, right? I mean, you can pat yourself on the back for giving a great speech, but nobody heard it, right? So I think when we look at AI and we look at how we're using data to measure impact, if we are not asking the right questions, I mean, data came into the conversation in the last maybe like 20 years, right? Where like all we talk about is data, data, data. We are awash in data. You can be sitting in a sea of data. If you don't ask the right question, it's useless, right? Like you're just kind of floating in information. So when I think about how we can use AI thoughtfully, you know, it's the same problem, right? If I'm asking my AI the wrong question, it will very dutifully go out and crunch a whole bunch of data and spit out a bunch of stuff that's going to make me feel great about all the things that I did. And I'm not actually going to impact anything. And I think in the current kind of reckoning that we're in, you know, I live in Nairobi. We have one of the biggest UN headquarters outside of New York. It is full of people that work in the nonprofit world who drive around in really nice cars, and they live in houses that are paid for the nonprofit, and they have a staff, and it's very strange, to be honest. Because, you know, I literally like moved there and I was like, oh, so when I give $10 to the World Wildlife Foundation, 8 of it goes to like support this like American who's like living in this weird colonial fantasy land. And like that is a real reckoning, yes. Right? Like so there are, I mean, you know, not that I want to give any like credence to certain aspects of the current political environment, but there are real questions about like when I give money to nonprofits, does it actually like hit the ground or does it get eaten in the process? So I think when we talk about impact, that's really important both in how we think about how we spend our time and our resources as nonprofit leaders, but it's also in how we tell our stories, right? Like, I think, I agree, right? Like, we have not solved the big problems. I mean, no. Structurally, no. Which, like, that's where the whole let's work together and actually come up with integrated solutions comes into the picture. But we have done things. And, like, the problem we always have is we don't tell that story well, right? And so, like, when we have donors that are giving us money, they don't want to come back because it's like, I'm going to tell you about all these conferences and gatherings and convenings that I did, but I'm not actually telling you the story of the individual people that were impacted by those things that we did. So I think if we could flip that script and really start with the end in mind, what is the service we're delivering, and then let's backwards plan, what we want to do, the inputs, to actually match those outputs, then both in terms of how we can analyze our impact and also how we can tell that story. I think that would make a big impact overall in our space.
Can I just add to that? So in 2018, I froze our assets and restructured our grant making, and we focused on the social determinants of health. And so every grantee, and I don't call them grantees anymore, we invested in them, had to pick a social determinant of health, and then they had to pick their team to solve the problem, right? So we reverse engineered that, then we reverse engineered the outputs to the UN SDGs so we can help them begin to think that I'm not just talking about Pittsburgh, I'm talking about Nairobi, I'm talking about Kenya, I'm talking about Canada. I'm not just talking about Pittsburgh, a specific Pittsburgh as a platform for global reckoning. That's a far different construct for nonprofits. They don't think anything like that. I was fortunate, I'm in the Club of Rome, RSA, yada, 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 4 international think tanks, presented in Jordan, Tunisia. I've been able to see the world. I'm from Homewood. And so I'm a unique, I'm an outlier. I'm not the pedigree of most philanthropists, because I'm from Homewood, once again, born and raised in the city. And so I'm a dichotomy in the system, but I'm probably the only one that knows what's happening on the ground for real, that has real connections, and can walk into a boardroom and give a presentation. We don't build, and I think this was said earlier, we don't build people's intuition around how to be creative anymore. We teach them how to answer questions. When I grew up, it wasn't like that. You had to figure stuff out. Your mother didn't come and father didn't come and teach you how to do stuff. You had to put it together. You had to MacGyver stuff and make it work. Like MacGyver's a real thing. Like, people want to just...
reference now.
That's the dated reference. Yeah, right. We were like, go ChatGPT to figure out what it is.
Dear Gemini, what is that?
My point is this, and I said this and I'll say this. My theory is this simple. To solve social phenomena, we need governmental agencies, philanthropy, nonprofits, researchers, hospitals, institutions, small businesses, and corporations to work together. There is no evidence that that's happening anywhere. So what are we really doing? If we say we seek to solve or eradicate a problem, and we all understand our single point of contact doesn't resolve it, we're playing with ourselves. It's mental fornication. And we're getting paid for that. And so those of us who are doing different, we're outliers and we're not recognized as somebody you want to work with because we're doing something so different that the sector is comfortable with, they're uncomfortable with us. But my question is, what are they solving? I can point to what we're solving. I can point to the people we've transformed. I can point to the people's lives that have been changed, not by us, but by their willingness to walk through a different door and act differently. Because we don't control that, they do. So the greater question is, why are we sitting in this room? And what do we seek to resolve today? And every one of us have a responsibility. Do not walk out of this room feeling like, he's not talking to me, I'm talking to you. Every one of you.
Please, yeah. So, we're talking a lot about systemic change that needs everyone coming together. I like to think I'm a hopeless optimist, because if I think about how, again, effed up the world is, I will not get out of bed. I don't think any of us would, right? That's why we're in this space, because we know that's where things are wrong, but we're still getting up every day. I used to run an incubator in Hermitage, Pennsylvania, like several years ago. And I remember, feeling this, like when the administration changed in 2016, this abject sense of what just happened. And I wanted to do something about it. Now, obviously, I'm an immigrant with a visa, a woman, all the things that basically, put a target on me if I try to do something different. So instead, we used to run a program for high school students. It's called Entrepreneurship Academy. It was basically getting high school seniors to come in every day of the week after school for a few hours and teach them the entrepreneurial mindset. Not just teach them, actually have them start building things. We also brought in SDGs. We would start by actually just telling them to do something and leave the room. And oh God, those first few weeks, the kids are just like, wait, what's a press release? And then they'll just sit there for 30 minutes. And then someone's like, maybe we should Google it. And then you start thinking about like, oh, I can figure this out myself. Oh, there are no instructions. Wait, do I put this on a page? Well, maybe I can Google it. How many lines? How many sentences? What font? And then now they start, you just leave them to their own devices and they will figure it out, right? So we had this amazing program, and this happens. And I had just come back from Denmark, where we had this thing called an Unleash Lab. It's a UN thing. They invited 1,000 community leaders from all over the world to come together, paid by the UN. That's where the money's going. Paid by the UN to come together and solve some very important problems across the SDGs. And I met these amazing people there. One was from Nigeria, one was from the Middle East, I forget, Qatar. One was from one of the Eastern European countries, Yugoslavia or something, and one was from Iraq, and his name is Hama. And I was like, I'm gonna do a video conference with all my students and my 4 teammates that were in my team that we solved the problem together, just to see what happens. And you can imagine, these are all kids who are growing up in families that are extremely, leaning on one side of the political spectrum. And so we go in and we start conversations, and a lot of the people on my team that were on the screen actually were much closer to the age of the high school seniors. I'm the older person. And interestingly, pretty soon the conversation went into the person from Iraq, Hama, dating someone or liking someone, and that person not liking him back. Instantly, the body language of every kid in that room is like, tell us more. How are you dealing with this? Do you date people in Iraq? Wait, you're Muslim? Are you allowed to date people? Pretty much then we were like, where did this conversation go? We walked out of that room, the educators, thinking, what's going on? And almost every kid walked out saying, oh my God, that Hama dude, I loved him. That is the power in our hands, right? That we can still do. And that's how we bridge the divides with the things that are in our hands, because otherwise, no one's coming to save us.
That's right.
If you take it back to, amazing points, but it's been sitting in my brain about like impact in AI, right? We want like in outputs. How many of you argue with yourself on AI? Yeah, like they actually like type. Like has anybody ever talked to Copilot where it's like, "Good morning, Ben. What do you want to talk about?" Like, has anybody ever done that?
No.
So
I
talk
was
about
verbally abused by AI.
Yeah. Sometimes it's rough on us. It's rough on us, but like you think about a tangible. Okay, what am I going to take from this from 30 days from now? Right? What am I going to take from this from 30 minutes after this conversation ends? I think it's always good, like, because it relates to everything about like how do we make an impact to young people when we get into this room? How do we make an impact about getting Carnegie Mellon to finish the AI traffic project they're working on for downtown, right? And I argue with myself in AI all the time because like I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room, and I don't want to be in a room if I am. But it's like I'll write a prompt, and then I'll be like, evaluate this at a McKinsey level to present to a C-suite. I'm going to talk about X, poke holes in my thoughts around this that could be contradicted in the room. So like that's another place where like a tangible coming out, like as you're getting ready for these forums, or if you're like I've never been to India before, and I got put in a room with the joint secretary, and I'm like, wow, did this happen? And we're talking about Gift City and all these, and I'm like, I write this thing, and I'm like, okay, now re-educate me from the lens of this economical view and things. So that's something like as we talk about how do we get the best impact and output. It's challenging ourselves and be like, okay, I'm about to give this talk to everybody, and like let's see what this world brain thing that listens to all of us all the time, like poke some holes in this for me and force me to learn, but force me to also use this to look at a different way. And again, like I bring it back to like big data and using it. There's a humanification. Like this is just another, like it's like social media is what happened to AI again. Like we kind of botched that one. So it's like how do we make this one a little bit better? But I think like when we talk about how do we get the best output for this, like that's one of the things I would say to challenge yourself with. Argue with AI. It's also really fun about some things. So, but it definitely grows your brain real fast, real quick. And if you put it you can say, imagine evaluating this in a room of nonprofit if you're a for-profit, or evaluate this as you're pitching a board for investment. Evaluate this from people with X background and what would the view be. It's really kind of enlightening. So just to round that out.
But that's where the human aspect comes in.
Yeah.
I think going back to what our professor was speaking about earlier, I remember when I was teaching as a special educator, I was forever getting into arguments with the regular ed teachers about calculators. Because, all of my students had calculators as an accommodation. It was like, the kids aren't going to learn math. And I was like, you also cannot multiply 5-digit numbers by each other without at least writing it down.
Still.
But also, if you use the graphing calculator incorrectly, it can't integrate and figure out complex problems for you. So if you're using it as a tool and really just as that, it can sharpen your argument. It can sharpen things. But we as humans are the ones that can integrate and can actually see the big picture and come up with new solutions, right? So there's also a piece around, you have to argue with the AI, have it argue with you, but also read what it spits out, because it will spit out crazy stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
We had a case in Kenya where one of the lawyers got caught by the Supreme Court because they were referencing a case that literally didn't exist.
Yeah.
It was the such and such act of 2013. So, we are still the smartest ones in the room in that sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it can expand your consciousness and it can bring so much more information than you can keep in this little brain of yours. But we are the creative problem
100%.
solvers, right? So that's where that piece that you're talking about with really expanding your viewpoints in.
Because we have to be smart enough to know to ask that.
Yeah.
If you're not smart enough to ask, and then you, I learn now, all the, depending on where I'm going, so I've learned through myself, but I never thought to argue with it until I was I literally was am I right? And it's well, I was now we're in a whole new hole. We're going down a deep rabbit hole. So, but we are definitely for sure, but it's thinking I never thought to ask it if
But guess
it's
what
right.
that requires?
That requires courage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you type that in and it tells you the story you want to hear, it soothes your spirit, right? But when you ask it to poke holes in it, you now got to challenge yourself on a human level and say, am I right? Right? And this is not a right or wrong proposition, it's a this and that proposition. So what we need to start looking at is how is AI as a tool being optimized, and how are we sharpening our skill set to optimize the tool versus the tool optimizing us?
Yep.
Right? I would say that, I'm sorry.
No, please, you're on a roll.
As we look at our horizon and the challenges we face, I would say that my organization is in the 6th organizational pivot. In our 6th pivot, if you look on our website or anything we're doing right now, the 3 things we're focusing on is the triangulation approach. We're looking at, my team is carrying the EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System. So are we teaching people how to be entrepreneurs? The second one is change management, so I do that training on change management. And the third one is adoption of AI in an ethical way, right? So we have a humanity-centered design approach. So we're not out there just being wild, build, code. We really are looking at the construct and lead by example. I'm saying that to you to say that none of this works without you guys being partners in the journey of self-discovery. And are we self-actualizing as a result of that, or are we allowing AI to self-actualize for us? And so I would challenge us all to, I read 3 or 4 books a week, and I go into a meeting and I tell people, have you read this? Like I'm doing strategic doing right now, and the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and 7 habits again. I love that book, and then Principle-Centered Leadership, and then The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. Because I'm really trying to understand, but the reason why I'm doing that is because there's a myriad of things happening. There's not one single thing happening to us, right? Bell Hooks talks about the dichotomy between feminists and patriarchy and matriarchy, and how people who try to find the support for that find their place nowhere. Why is that critical? Because the world is full of people who are on one side of that fence or the other, and their thinking is driven by that. If I don't seek to understand that at a high level, I don't engage them in a meaningful way. I come across with dominant culture, pedagogy, or thing. And so how are we seeking to first understand then be understood, which is a Covey framework, and then put ourselves in positions to learn as a result of the experience, and then AI becomes a tool to optimize that, not the first thing we go to, but really the last thing we go to, as a result of our consciousness recognizing the state of this engagement, not from a technical perspective, but from a human one.
Okay. So I do have a question for you, Fred, as a follow-up to that. So you're talking about these tools and what nonprofits and organizations need to do, but obviously we know that a lot of these things cost money. So what role do funders play in this solution? You know, you talked about the lack of impact and the lack of cooperation on these councils. So who's paying for this? How do we make it happen?
I put $1 million into where we are with Mad Labs and our Gilly and Skill Builder IO. We just got a AI grant. There's not enough resources. There's enough resources to build the technology, but not the humans to learn the technology, if you understand what I'm saying. And so I think the problem, and we've always had this problem. I remember when the city of Pittsburgh was 100 resilient cities grantee. We won the 15 national and 33 international cities with that designation. And the mayor sent me to New York to help the city of Pittsburgh become the second U.S. city to adopt the UN SDGs. So I was on the ground doing that work. When I came back, the mayor was talking about that. We were doing it, nobody else was doing it. And so we have, I have this construct about Pittsburgh, which might be true for other places. And this is indicative of our humanity. Pittsburgh's interested in change, but not committed to change.
Say that again?
Pittsburgh is interested in change, but not committed to change. And let me preface that by saying, Google did an analysis of cross-functional teams versus homogenous teams. Cross-functional teams outperform homogenous teams. But yet, when I went to Google 10 years ago and said, how come you're not more diverse? They said, we'll work on it. When has Google ever failed? They did not complete the task in Pittsburgh. And when I confronted them, I got pushed to the side. And so we lack courage to confront the very things people say. And so where is our baseline for holding people to a truth? If we can't start there, then we can't build the most. If you look at right now, who's coding most of this stuff, they don't look like me. And so when it hallucinates, when I ask the question, it's because it doesn't have enough of me programming it and coding it to say, well, no, that doesn't, when he says this, it actually means this in his neighborhood. And so my concern and why I'm pushing AI for people across race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic strata to touch it is if we don't begin to infuse it with diversity, it will become one single theme and thought process, and primarily driven by dominant culture pedagogy. That's dangerous because it doesn't take into effect that cultural diversity is required to solve social phenomena. The greater question is, do we really want to solve problems? Because I'm starting to question, do we really want to solve problems? Because when I look at the industrial prison complex, and I look at the industrial nonprofit complex, and to your point, what's going on in Nairobi with the nonprofits hitting the house and the car, what? Can you sign me up? I'll give you my information.
To be clear, I live in a small apartment that I pay for myself.
Disclaimer.
I do not have a driver. I drive a 2003 Toyota RAV4.
I'm just saying that there are levels to the game that mitigate growth because people are taking personal advantage of the system. Right? And that's happening at every level. And so what we're up here saying is, how do our efforts recenter our humanity? How does each one of us in this room hold each other accountable, not just our colleagues and other people, but ourselves to challenge ourselves to be the best versions of ourselves? And then how are we in other spaces with other people saying, here's the 5 things I'm going to work on, hold me accountable to that. That takes courage and accountability. That's something we don't have as a nation anymore.
I agree with Fred 100%. I want to also provide a perspective from the hopeless optimism that because it just feels like everything is going wrong. During that time when I was teaching at Hermitage, right, I used to drive from Pittsburgh. It was a long drive. I learned that it's a great time to listen to audiobooks. I'm a science fiction aficionado. Science fiction is not a great audiobook listen. You want to read it because you imagine it better. But a lot of these, like, you know, strong theory and like philosophy and those kind of books are really helpful because it gives you time to just sit and ruminate as you're driving. And so one of these books that I was listening to was called The Better Angels of Our Nature. And this was when I thought we were in the worst possible time of our life. And when you read that book, it basically says that humanity right now is better than it's ever been because, hey, guess what? Even literally 200 years ago, we were just killing people for stealing. We were stoning people for looking at someone else's spouse. We were doing really unimaginable shit. And so compared to that, we're actually not doing that bad, right? The reason why I give that perspective is I've just gone and lived in Canada for 4 years. And in Toronto, which is supposed to be, you know, the tech hub, and you sit here and everyone for the last so many years across administrations has been saying, Canada is so much better. Oh my God, it's so diverse. It's so this, it's so that. I went and lived there. I actually did that move primarily because my visa expired and I couldn't work anymore. So I was very impacted by what was going on. And when I went there, I realized that people looked at me and said, "You're from Pittsburgh? Wait, you guys have already figured all of this out. You guys are way ahead of us."
You're on secret. Hard stop.
Yeah. And so that spectrum matters. Toronto innovation ecosystem started just over the last 10 years. They're where Pittsburgh was 10 years ago. When I spoke to a leader in the nonprofit world who left Pittsburgh and moved to San Diego, you might know who I'm talking about, he was telling me how after being in San Diego, which doesn't have a philanthropic foundation, he realized that Pittsburgh philanthropic history and legacy is so long that we now have all these bureaucracies and all this crap and all these people and turfdom and da-da-da, because we've been doing philanthropy for decades. That's why we are where we are. A place like San Diego, he was like, you probably walked down the street and met a billionaire in the last 15 minutes. That's how much money there exists. But people have no idea how to systematize that money and actually make good of it. And my jaw dropped. And I was like, but I thought Pittsburgh nonprofit world was crazy. And he's like, yes, it is, because we've had enough time to get there. Mm-hmm. So all I want to say is that perspective matters, because sometimes we don't know. I came back to Pittsburgh for that reason, not from San Diego, from Toronto, because I believe that there's something so special in the water here. I'm kidding. That was a slide. In the people here, in the community, we still believe that we can do something, because there's that grit in, you know, how we've gotten ourselves from where we were to where we are. And I think that's something that that has to be that burning light that carries us forward, because like I said, no one's coming to save us.
I think picking real fast, like to talk about like investing, like how do we, to the question like how do we get funding for these things, right? And it goes to like what both of you are saying. It's like it's the people on the other side of that wall, right? There's young kids out there that will outcode all of us. So you all are industry leaders. You have a nonprofit. You're a CEO. You're a funder. Like, what do we do? A kid over there is going to pitch you an app that they made on their phone. Will you listen to it? Like, will you provide the feedback? Like, so I worked, my whole career is higher education, mostly recruiting and admissions, right? I worked with the Diversity Center at Penn State. They were in the Startup Week, right? All those kids, if you listen to them about their app they want to start, and then they go off to Penn State or they come to Carnegie Mellon and they end up in the Schwartz Center, and they have their own garage, and now they're getting, and how are they getting funded? Well, they're getting funded because they talk to you, who might have known somebody here, the LinkedIn world, the connecting through there, right? Got them to have the courage to say, hey, when I was 9, I pitched a person at Carnegie Mellon about this thing, and now I'm going to go and like, how do you teach an entrepreneur? That was a big question here when I was here in the working the MBA program, and it's like, well, it's about skills and around how we do it. So sustainability was becoming big. So it's like, how are we want to be invested, but our time's kind of past, right? We know how to go to investors, we can pitch whatever. But the people that are behind us, it's how do we give them the confidence, right, the skills to be able to, as they go to these sort of conferences, as universities, right, we are major grant holders as universities and educational establishments. I mean, we hold, almost every university has an entrepreneurship center now, right? Like, do people know how to even engage those sort of things? So it's the young people behind us and the diversity that's within it, right, is like, there are major centers, even with everything that has gone on in our country. So it's about the people that are here, that are in these rooms, right? It's awesome. I was in Go and I was with the secretary. Awesome, right? My impact will be greater when I go to lunch and talk to these kids about, like, what do you want to do in life? Like, what are you working on? So that's what I would say.
The last thing I would say is that we started something 3 years ago in partnership with First T called the Transformation Leadership Cohort. We're using golf as a metaphor for complexity theory. And this year we're introducing the scramble to that why. I played 5 or 6 years ago with senators and congressmen because we didn't talk about policy and politics at all. And that's where the resources derive from at some level. And so anybody in this room that has went to Capitol Hill know that you usually get 15 minutes and 10 minutes with the tip staff and 5 minutes with a senator or congressman. But if you play golf, you get 4 hours with that congressman. Right? Uninterrupted, unabated, and if he or she warms up to you, y'all usually have go for dinner or lunch. So I've done that several times, and it's changed my whole trajectory on how I go about engaging politicos. Even on both sides of the aisle, because I have to be switchable and I have to be neutral. But seeking to understand where they're coming from is critically important. And so for us, we had to gamify some of this stuff, because what you're talking about is people who, some of our emerging leaders during Black Lives Matter got jobs I don't think they were prepared for. And so to me, it was almost a setup. They got a job as a CEO, and all they ever did was run the program. Running the program and running the company ain't the same thing. And so I called a lot of them and said, hey, let me talk to you, let me holler at you about what you're going to walk into. Every one of them said, I don't need your help. 6 months later, they was calling me, hey, I'm about to get fired, man. I can't help you now. I was trying to get you to avoid the pitfalls, because anybody in this room that's a CEO knows that you're the least important person in the room. You think you're the most important when you get hired, but you are not. There's politics. If it's foundations, there's foundations, then there's the board, then there's your staff, then there's constituents, then there's your family, then there's you. And everything falls on your head that's wrong, and everything that goes right is everybody else's success. It's a very hard job. It's a very lonely post, right? So what we're doing is teaching people how emerging leaders are trained by long-standing leaders to understand the process. And like you said in Pittsburgh, the depth of philanthropy that we have, it creates a whole different nuance of power struggles that you don't see in other cities. And so how do you teach people who've never had to navigate that, how to navigate that, and do it without being circumvent to take care of themselves? Because there's a real easy way that you can make money in this field and turn a blind eye to everything else and not serve humanity. That happens every day in our sector.
The Pittsburgh power struggle, hearing all of you talk, Kataki specifically, you talked about Pittsburgh, and we always talk about Pittsburgh being the best place to live and all of these great things that are amazing about Pittsburgh, but who is it best for? There was a report that came out that said that Pittsburgh was the worst place for Black women to live and grow up in. So when we're looking at AI, it's no different. Who is it best for? We cannot solve the world's problems right now, but we can work to solve a Pittsburgh problem. And so, my call to action specifically in this group is, reach across the table, introduce yourself, make those connections. For the teachers in the room, find a teacher at your local public school, share with them what you've learned, really start to have those conversations so it's not just best for the elites in the room, the people who have the ability to take work off today and to be here, but it really is going to show up for everyone. I do want to be able to answer any questions before we have to close up to this time-ish. We have a few questions. Yes. And you can stand in the purple. Yep.
So my question is for Brendan. You had mentioned, you were talking about calculators and how AI is a kind of a calculator. questions, have this vision, big picture, and so on. But at the same time, some of the thoughts from the panel have been that we are not keeping up, that we lack the will to have that big picture. How do you reconcile those?
Wow, it's not a small question. I mean, I think it's funny, right? Because we talked about how AI is a tool that can be used for good or for nefarious means. Humans are also the same, right? I mean, we have infinite skill that can go in all manner of directions, and we can design things that are beautiful, and we can design things that are incredibly destructive. You know, I think about it's interesting being here, like as a Rotary event, because anyone who's familiar with Rotary knows that one of our signature initiatives is ending polio, and that's something that Rotary has worked on for decades. You know, I live in a place where people still go into villages, you know, in far reaches of the country, and they're, you know, giving the oral vaccines to children. You know, those are things that are inherently driven by people. You know, I could use AI as a tool to say, help me, you know, I want to come up with a plan to expand my impact, you know, give me blah, 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 and I can give it the criteria. But, you know, that requires me to have the will to use it as a tool for good in that specific instance, right? So I think that, and this is probably like me talking all around your question because I don't have the best answer, but yeah, I think that, you know, there is a degree of social pressure that we have to exert also, right? I think that, you know, we used to, you know, there's the old adage about you get more, what is it, flies with honey than with vinegar or something, or salt, something. You know, we, I think, have to be courageous. I think we talked about courage. Like, there's a need to be courageous as leaders in this space and kind of be the torchbearer that's like, look, the tool is here. Here's the way that I'm using it. I also need to not be afraid to then share that with other people in the space, right? Because the idea is you are all specialists in the different areas that you specialize in, right? Nobody can fix housing and healthcare and all of the things. I wish I could, but you know that I probably would be on a yacht somewhere. So we have to be willing to then share, right? Because it's like ideally if I'm in a public health NGO and you're in an education NGO, we're not in competition with each other, right? So if I'm able to design tools that exist inside of Claude or exist in these different models, here's the way that it's helping me. There's no harm in me sharing it with you if we're not actually like, I mean, we're a nonprofit. I mean, we should operate like businesses because of efficiency, but we're not actually like businesses where we're like in competition with each other. So there's no harm in doing that, right? I think there's a way that we can exert more positive social pressure in the space by being leaders in the way that we push forward in a positive direction and then share that across spaces that will help build more momentum in that way, right? But that will also help us be a little bit less fragmented because I think that is part of the problem right now. We're all in our silos and doing our things, and that's great, but we can be greater together.
I saw another hand raised, so I want to make sure I get any other questions out there. Did I see another hand? Did you want to follow up on that?
I literally just had an exercise for everyone here, right? Exactly based on what Brennan just said. Reach across the table whenever there's a break. Think about something you're trying to solve. Find someone that's literally not doing what you're doing. And say, hey, do you have any ideas how we could use AI to solve this problem? And then the other person can do the same thing. Try that. Try that. That's the simplest thing. You're here with a room full of experts that are expert in something. And the sooner you let go of the fact that I'm scared, the better it is. And the second thing you can do is take that same problem and ask someone that's like in high school or college or something in your family and say, hey, would you be interested in spending 30 minutes with me? I'm trying to solve this problem. Do you know the AI tools? Can you help me figure it out?
Let me just...
To the lady that asked the question, there's a group of organizations, we're doing it, but we just got an OpenAI grant. There's going to be about 10 national organizations doing this. But we started a few years ago, we do 3 cohorts to answer your question. One is we do one that educates people on the different uses of platforms, just in general use, so it increases their IQ around that. The second one is we use brick mindset to teach them how to function as a business, and the third one, we help them create an AI agent. And so we actually just started a cohort 2 weeks ago, and actually it's functioning right now. But to answer your question, we walk people, and this, I had my mother in the class, and she's 80, right? And I told her to take the class, and I paid for her to take the class because I need to understand at the most granular level, why would an 80-year-old not take the class? I hear why, but I need them to take the class and then come out and say why I wouldn't take it. And so we have to be thinking about why somebody wouldn't do it and create a condition for them to have the experience and then extrapolate from that how we can learn to be better at it. The words we use to invite people in, the fear we reduce people into thinking is this is going, I was presenting across the country. I was working with Dr. Levine before she left for the White House, and she asked me to put together a model, and when I put it together and went across the state and the country, I started asking people in general, like, what's their concern around AI? And people told me the Terminator was coming. Like, for real.
All the time.
Skynet. Like, Skynet.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God, like, if you don't touch the thing, all of these things become your reality. And so if we don't prick the consciences of people to really start asking questions, and to me, we have to be a society where people touch it to understand that you just can't read it and get it from a theoretical perspective. It has to be metaphysical as well. So I would tell you to do that. And the second thing I would say is we have to encourage people to read again. People don't read anymore. And so when you read, it forces your mind and synapses to fire differently, to ask different questions, so that you don't have a fear of AI, right? But if you stop reading, you stop pushing your mind to think differently and divergently. So I do book reading clubs, and then also the last thing I'll say is I just started a 30 CEO roundtable group. And what I didn't understand was how many CEOs felt like they was by themselves, especially after COVID. And so we've been having these, we just had a call to action on Monday to do 30 projects in 30 days, right? And so we give people space to learn, and then we give them resources and support to combat what they're afraid of, and then we ask them to report out on the learning without judgment, right? How do we do an autopsy without blame? And how do we speak without offending and listen without defending? Like, that's a mindset we have to teach people about.
I'll say just.
Let me just have her. Yep, and then we have
a really
to wrap
good
it up.
thing. So much to digest here. Thank you so much for everything. But something that seems to be the elephant in the room to me is we haven't talked about the consumption of electricity.
Yes.
And we talked about that in world affairs. Sustainability has been one of our subjects. And I have not heard one word about it.
We're screwed.
Let me say
it's one of those like things that is so horrible to talk about.
Yeah. We got 2 challenges. One is Pittsburgh wants to be a terabyte city.
Yep.
And $10 billion is about to be invested in Homer City to create data centers. That's happening. How we get involved with that prior to it happening is critical. And so we know those are happening. So I used to be an environmentalist in another life. I wrote policy with the Bush administration. And so it's very hard for me to understand how we're using the environment in a negative way to drive this energy source. But also we have to find solutions. And so I'm working on that with some groups of people, some environmentalists, some EJ groups. But the data centers are coming. How they come is up to us to figure out how we navigate that. Those investments are being made. Think about this, if they do 3 data centers in Homer City, each of them are 500,000 square feet, at the conclusion, they're gonna have 11 staff full-time. For $10 billion investment, so you're talking about 33 people facilitating 3 sites with 500,000 square foot per site. That's not the rate of exchange on that is not great. So where's the 10 billion going? If you ever been to Homer City, it's a 2-lane road, so you got to build infrastructure to get materials out there. I'm just like imminent though, and there's going to be all kinds of stuff that happens to human beings. While that's taking into account the impact on those human beings. And all I'm saying to everybody in the room is like, we gotta start asking questions. Like the one you just posed. Like, why are we talking about the data centers and the energy use?
There are millions of liters of water used every single day for those images that everyone was putting into ChatGPT and generating last week. I do believe I have to close, unfortunately, but we can definitely continue this conversation over lunch, and then we have our workshop after this. But I want to thank this panel for amazing conversation. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Delvina.
Thank you, Delvina, and thank you. A round of applause for our panelists. Just quick announcements. I know everybody's probably hungry and anxious to get to lunch. Just a little bit of the layout here. Meals, box lunches are back in the corner over here. Drinks are over on this side. We have several people who requested special meals. Those have been set aside with your name on it. All meals are not free. I want to share with all of you. We're going to move right into lunch. The next session is going to start at 12:30. Is that right? 12:30, I think.
Yeah, sure.
We'll go.
12:30. We'll be here for lunch. We are going to pass out surveys for the entire World Affairs Institute day during lunch. We know there's some people in the room that may have to leave a little bit early. It's a really short survey. Please, if you have a couple of minutes at the end of the day or before you leave, take some time to fill it out. We really work hard in putting on a great event every year, and your feedback really helps us do that. So enjoy your lunch. We'll put a little bit of music on.
Yeah.
And,
We do some great things.
we'll see you again
We do
for the next session.
So I can do the future forecast of so I do it for Canadian government. No. So and I'm in Dublin Park. Well, I've engaged, to be honest, like at that level. Like this is my first adjusting out for now. How much do you guys throw? I mean, it ranges, right? It depends on like source of use and those kind of things. I'm running.
I'm gonna get a panel photo really quickly of us.
Then we'll be back.
Thank you. Because I think he wants the world in it. We're gonna like let it run. Yeah. Showcase the world. Right? On the side.
Watch yourself on that edge.
Don't fall. You're
Yeah, watch.
Here's a little share.